Chapter 210. The sharp and invisible astral wind turned into an indestructible sharp blade and fiercely slashed at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan smiled and completely ignored Shu Xianzhe's 9 heavens formless astral wind. His domineering punch carried a violent power that caused the entire space in front of him to tremble. Shu Xianzhe's smile had already appeared at the corner of his mouth, but it instantly became stiff. Because he suddenly felt that the space he was in was like a dangerous building in an earthquake, in danger of collapsing at any time. How is this possible? He should only be in the golden elixir period. As soon as this thought appeared in Shu Xianzhe's mind, he saw that the space he was in actually began to be annihilated and collapsed. Black lines appeared in the space, extremely dazzling. With just this punch, the expressions of Zhang Hai, Supreme Dark Wind, and Yuan Feng changed slightly. Originally, they had disdained Xiao Yan, but now, they all looked shocked. As cultivators of the original infant stage, they naturally knew that the black lines in the air were not tangible. They were actually cracks in the air. Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams disintegration technique was already extremely domineering, and after he himself had formed the golden elixir, its power had increased to an even more frightening level. The shadow of death floated in Shu Xianzhe's mind. He didn't dare to have any other thoughts. He hurriedly summoned the 9 heavens formless astral wind to protect his body, and his whole body turned into a gust of wind, retreating rapidly. Fortunately, Xiao Yan wasn't a real Yuanian cultivator, and the 8 trigrams disintegration technique could only shatter the space, but couldn't completely lock down the void domain. Otherwise, this move would have taken Shu Xianzhe's life. Xiao Yan curled his lips. You want to leave so easily? He took out the black cloud flag and waved it lightly. His whole body was wrapped in black light, and he instantly broke through the void and arrived behind Shu Xianzhe. Shu Xianzhe was scared out of his wits. You dare, why wouldn't I dare? Xiao Yan sneered and punched again. A huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky. True Monarch Hurricane stepped out from it and snorted coldly, "Young man, don't be too arrogant." Although True Monarch Typhoon had the appearance of a teenager, he spoke with an air of seniority, and the waves of magic power of a Yuanian cultivator were even more domineering. He waved his hand casually, and a breeze blew up. It was not as fierce as the 9 heavens formless gale, but it broke through Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams disintegration with astonishing destructive power. From Miao Shihao, Xiao Yan already knew the background of True Monarch Hurricane, but he was not afraid at all. He chuckled and said, "Old man, don't be too arrogant." A pair of flaming wings suddenly unfurled from his back. The pure golden flames were as sharp and dazzling as the tip of a needle, and a strong and blazing aura instantly enveloped half of the sky. True Sun Fire. Zhang Hai and the others were shocked once again. They saw Xiao Yan's wings flutter, and a golden light burst out. True Monarch Hurricane was startled, and the 9 heavens formless gale moved according to his will, turning into layers of barriers and isolating the True Sun Fire. This time, he used his real skill, but didn't let Xiao Yan's True Sun Fire break through the defense line. Unfortunately, Shu Xian was hit by the Great Ancestor's gale and vomited blood. A look of anger appeared on True Monarch Hurricane's face. Dozens of swift and fierce 9 heavens formless gale directly smashed the True Sun Fire in front of him, and then rushed toward Xiao Yan like a rainstorm. Looking at the gale rushing toward him, Xiao Yan looked relaxed and didn't panic at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "Master, I can handle it." Lin Feng's calm voice rang out in the void, "I don't want to see you and this kind of trash suffer together." Before his voice died away, an ancient bronze mirror flashing with a dim yellow light appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Wherever the mirror light went, it was as heavy as the earth. When True Monarch Hurricane's 9 heavens formless gale fell on the dim yellow mirror light, it couldn't go any further. Although the dim yellow mirror light was constantly cut by the gale, it could always be replenished very quickly, steadily resisting the 9 heavens formless gale. Wind and earth, the lightest and the heaviest. As a result, neither could do anything to the other. True monarch Hurricane's face turned gloomy. He withdrew the 9 heavens formless gale, and then he saw Lin Feng walking out of the void, followed by Kang Nanhua, Yang Tonghui, Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, and the others. With both sides causing such a huge ruckus, the other cultivators who rushed over from the Sand State City to watch the ceremony were also alarmed. They left the city in 2s and 3s, arriving at the wasteland 100 miles southeast of the Sand State City. From far away, they coldly watched the confrontation between Lin Feng and True Monarch Hurricane and the others. When True Monarch Hurricane saw Lin Feng, he asked coldly, "Are you the master of Xian Gate, Lin Feng?" But Lin Feng didn't pay attention to him at all. He turned his head slightly and said to Xiao Yan, "Bring everyone back to the city." Xiao Yan responded with a smile, and no longer paid attention to True Monarch Hurricane. He landed on the ground, and with a sweep of his transcendence energy, he wrapped Lu Xiaofeng and the others up. He looked at Lu Xiaofeng and said with a smile, "Not bad, you're a tough one." Lu Xiaofeng felt Xiao Yan's transcendence energy pouring into his body, healing the injuries caused by his relaxed state earlier. He smiled lazily, "It's just that I can't stand their overbearing manner." Seeing this, True Monarch Hurricane's face turned even gloomier, and he shouted resolutely, "Leave them here." As he spoke, another astral wind swept out. This time, it was Miao Shihao, who hadn't made a move before, who took on his attack. When True Monarch Hurricane made a move earlier, Miao Shihao wanted to fight back, but both Zhang Hai and Yu Wanfeng's attention were on him at the same time, so Miao Shihao had to be cautious. Now that Lin Feng had appeared, Miao Shihao didn't need to care anymore. What a bad temper. Miao Shihao giggled, pinched his right hand together, and drew a square in the air. Immediately, a perfect diamond-shaped flashing mirror appeared in the air, facing True Monarch Hurricane's 9th heaven phaseless astral wind. As the mirror light flashed, an identical 9th heaven phaseless astral wind rushed out from the diamond-shaped mirror. The two astral winds had exactly the same power. When they collided in the air, they immediately disappeared into nothingness. True Monarch Hurricane's face darkened. "Miao Shihao, are you going to follow this third-rate sect to the end?" Yu Wanfeng, who was behind him, laughed strangely. "This bullshit Xianmen Tianzong really doesn't have any taboos, accepting everything." Even True Monarch Mirror Flower, who is neither a man nor a woman, also accepted it. Yu Wanfeng looked at Lin Feng, and said with a sarcastic smile, "Could it be that sect leader Lin actually likes this kind of style?" As soon as he said that, not only were Xiao Yan and the other disciples behind Lin Feng infuriated, even Kang Nanhua, who was always calm, frowned. The cultivators who came to watch the ceremony from afar all had strange expressions, and some even looked back and forth between Lin Feng and Miao Shihao with presumptuous gazes. On the contrary, Miao Shihao, who was humiliated in front of him, looked calm. Not only was he not angry, he even laughed. Ha 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 ha. Miao Shihao's laughter became louder and louder, until it almost shook the sky. As his voice grew louder, Miao Shihao's laughter also changed. In the beginning, it was delicate and feminine, but the more it went on, the louder and louder it became. In the end, it was majestic and mighty, with a spirit that could swallow mountains and rivers. In the midst of his laughter, Miao Shihao's entire temperament changed. Although his figure was still thin and slender, and his facial features were still extraordinarily handsome, the feeling that Miao Shihao gave people at this moment was not the slightest bit feminine and artificial. At this moment, Miao Shihao was like a valiant, heroic, and high-spirited man, singing passionately and vigorously. When the false is true, the true is false. When the true is false, the false is also true. Miao Shihao's laughter suddenly stopped. He shook his head and said with a sigh, "Flowers in the mirror, the moon in the water, a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow. Life is just like that. Is appearance really that important? Who can guarantee that what they see is true?" At this moment, his temperament changed again. He was no longer feminine and delicate, nor was he masculine and valiant. Instead, he was like Kang Nanhua and Meng Chaoran, calm, indifferent, and as gentle as jade. After staring at Miao Shihao for a while, Mr. Zhang Hai sighed and said, "Mirror Flower Supreme, your ethereal magic art has improved again. Judging from your appearance, you should be able to advance to the middle stage of Yuanying very soon. Thank you for your praise." In just a few words, Miao Shihao's temperament changed back to that charming and enchanting brother Shihao. He glanced at Lin Feng with a charming smile and said, "It's all thanks to my lord that I can make such progress." Lin Feng smiled and said, "I just happened to be at the right time." Yuan Feng looked at Miao Shihao with a livid face. When he was about to say something, he suddenly saw Lin Feng's gaze sweeping over, and his heart suddenly shuddered. Lin Feng's gaze fell on True Monarch Typhoon and Yuan Feng, and he said lightly, "I seem to have heard someone say that my Xianmen Tianzong is a third-rate sect, not worth mentioning." True Monarch Typhoon said coldly, "So what?" With his hands behind his back, Lin Feng looked around and said calmly, "Everyone here is a fellow cultivator of the Kunlun mountain range. You can all be witnesses." Wu Yunliang's heart moved, and he asked, "May I ask what Lord Lin wants us to witness?" Lin Feng faintly smiled and calmly said a sentence, but it made everyone sink into a deathly silence. After a short while, the cultivators who came to watch the ceremony didn't care about the occasion and burst into discussion. Could it be that this master of Xianmen is a madman? Even Shu Mountain Sword Sect and Taishu Temple wouldn't dare to boast like this, right? This person is really crazy. Such an arrogant person, his opening of the mountain this time will definitely end in a joke. You and I don't need to say anything more. The Yu clan and the Wind God sect will definitely not allow him to be so insolent. Even Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, and Yang Tonghui, who were next to Lin Feng, looked at Lin Feng in shock. A feeling of absurdity arose in their hearts. Lin Feng's declaration was still echoing non-stop in their minds at this moment. In a fight of the same realm, the disciples of my Xianmen Tianzong are invincible. On the other side, Mr. Zhang Hai closely stared at Lin Feng. "Sect leader Lin, this same realm of yours, does it mean that your sect's disciple, with a cultivation level of the initial stage of the Aurus Core stage, even if you were to face an opponent of the late stage Aurus Core stage, he still wouldn't care?" Lin Feng calmly nodded his head. His gaze swept across the crowd of people who were discussing, and then looked at the people of the Yu clan and the Wind God sect, who had a mocking expression on their faces, and lightly laughed. "Those who are not convinced, at this time, at this place, stand out. I, Xianmen Tianzong, will accept all challenges." Chapter 211. Lin Feng said calmly, "Those who are not convinced, come out now and hear. I, Xianmen Tianzong, will accept all challenges." Yuan Feng was so angry that he laughed. "What an arrogant person, aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? Even the world's #1 sacred ground, Taishu Temple, wouldn't dare to say such bold words. Shu Mountain Sword Sect's Sword Dao is unparalleled in the world, and their attacks are the sharpest. Even they wouldn't dare to say such words. So you're a madman." True Monarch Windstorm smiled and shook his head, looking at the group of young boys behind Lin Feng. Those young boys are all prodigies who want to enter the Xianmen Sky sect. True Monarch Windstorm smiled at them and said, "Such arrogant people who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, you guys still want to enter his sect? If you don't know when to advance or retreat, your destruction is imminent. There are no eggs left intact when the nest is overturned. It's not too late for you to change your mind now." Xiao Yan chuckled, "A Yuanying cultivator can't even take down a golden elixir period cultivator like me. Your Wind God sect should be disbanded as soon as possible. It's not too late to disband now so that you won't continue to embarrass yourselves." Anger appeared on the Wind God sect's cultivators' faces. However, when they thought of Shu Xianchu's ending and Xiao Yan's son Real Fire when he took on True Lord Typhoon's True Fire, their momentum instantly weakened. Only an old man beside True Lord Typhoon snorted, "Arrogant and ignorant junior, let this old man teach you the rules." This old man's mana was perfect and flawless. He was a golden elixir advanced stage cultivator. He stepped out from the front and looked at Xiao Yan coldly. True Lord Typhoon's expression was gloomy. He didn't say anything, obviously tacitly agreeing with the other party's actions. Seeing this, Yang Tonghui secretly frowned. You came up with a golden elixir advanced stage to challenge someone at golden elixir early stage. Isn't this the same as admitting that your golden elixir early stage is not a match for a golden elixir intermediate stage disciple? His gaze fell on Xiao Yan. However, this child is indeed ferocious. His early golden elixir cultivation is able to control the solar true fire. This power far surpasses his peers. They arrived at the scene together with Lin Feng. Although they were a little late, they had seen the whole process of Xiao Yan fighting with true monarch Hurricane. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran were also secretly communicating. Isn't the true sun flame the only true flame of the Golden Crow tribe? I really don't know if it's this child's own good fortune, or if it's the intentional arrangement of the Celestial Sect of Wonders Master. If all the disciples of the Celestial Sect of Wonders are so strong, then it would really be shocking. Silently, Meng Chaoran replied, that old man is one of the top experts of the Wind God's sect during the Golden Elixir period. His 9 heavens formless astral wind is also one of the 4 great divine winds. Its power is not weaker than the true sun fire. Moreover, he might have something else to rely on. Wu Yunliang nodded. You and I will wait and see. Xiao Yan looked at the old man of the Wind God's sect who challenged him. His eyes flashed, and he looked at Lin Feng with a smile. Lin Feng slightly nodded. Xiao Yan's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the old man. You think that with the true sun fire, you can do whatever you want? The old man sneered, and his figure suddenly moved. A dim saber light in the midst of the fierce wind slashed down towards Xiao Yan in a strange arc. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows, someone who cultivates the physical body. He was not afraid of the enemy's sneak attack at all. He used the 8 trigrams collapse technique to meet the attack head-on. However, the old man's saber light was erratic with the fierce wind. The path of the saber was extremely strange, and it constantly changed, looking for Xiao Yan's weak point to launch a sneak attack. This kind of guerrilla warfare was what Xiao Yan hated the most. He sneered, and waved the black cloud flag. His figure was wrapped in a black light, and it constantly changed in the space. It was even more strange and unpredictable than the old man. The old man slightly frowned. This magic tool that can move space is even more troublesome than the true sun fire. The saber light in his hand suddenly changed, and the originally dim saber light became almost undetectable. The saber light scattered into millions of fragments, and they were distributed in the fierce wind. Under the old man's technique, the fierce wind instantly turned into a huge tornado. It rose straight up, and covered a radius of 100 meters. The old man casually waved his hand, and a large amount of wind element spiritual energy was extracted from the air, and integrated into the tornado, making it even more powerful. Xiao Yan was vigilant. Although he constantly changed his position with the help of the black cloud flag, he was still within the range of the tornado. In the tornado, saber lights flashed from time to time. They seemed weak, but as long as one saber light caught a trace of Xiao Yan, the next moment, the saber light would suddenly brighten, and the old man would immediately rush over. The scattered saber lights would instantly gather together, and its power would greatly increase. Xiao Yan dodged once, and the saber lights would scatter again, and continue to be distributed in the tornado. Until the next time it caught a target, it would gather again. The old man's saber lights split and gathered, and dispersed as he wished. They were mixed in the fierce wind that filled the sky, and it just happened to restrain the black cloud flag's short-distance movement ability. Xiao Yan dodged another saber light, and his ruthlessness was aroused. He sneered, "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" His figure suddenly stopped, and he withdrew the black cloud flag. The old man's saber lights immediately found him, and gathered together, turning into a huge saber light, and chopped down towards Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan sneered, and he used 8 trigrams disintegration again. However, he didn't use it to attack, and he used it to dispel external demons for defense. The layers of disintegration vibrations formed an invisible wall, and it blocked the old man's saber light, not allowing it to advance an inch. At the same time, Xiaoyan's Sun Real Fire suddenly burst forth, and it attacked the old man. The old man calmly took out an artifact, and it was a divine fire glass barrier, which protected him from the Sun Real Fire's attack. Lin Feng, who was watching the battle from the outside, came to a realization, so there's such an item, no wonder he dares to take the initiative to challenge. True Monarch Hurricane saw this, and he frowned slightly. He originally thought that with the divine fire glass barrier restraining the Sun Real Fire, he should be able to win. Who knew that it would turn into a situation where neither win nor lose? Furthermore, how intense was the Sun Real Fire? This divine fire glass barrier could only block it for a short period of time. As time went on, it would still be broken by the Sun Real Fire. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, and he said slowly, Sun Real Fire, that's the innate ability unique to the Golden Crow race, right? Your Mystic Gate disciple actually has this fire. Could it be that you're in cahoots with the Golden Crow race? Lin Feng smiled. Who made the rule that only the Golden Crow race can control the true fire of the sun? That's right, the Golden Crow race was born from the Sun Real Fire, and they can control this fire innately, but it doesn't mean that they own the Sun Real Fire. The 7 great Sun Real Fires in the world are created by the heaven and earth. Those with great abilities can naturally comprehend the truth of the heaven and earth, and comprehend the profoundness within. True Monarch Hurricane snorted. Easy for you to say. If it's really as you said, then take out another type of Sun Real Fire. Before he finished his words, Xiaoyan, who was in the battle, let out a soft shout, and besides the dazzling golden flames of the Sun Real Fire, a deep and gloomy bluish-purple flame suddenly lit up. Compared to the Sun Real Fire, it wasn't as strong and hot, but it was more domineering and violent. Under the dumbstruck eyes of True Monarch Hurricane and the others, the bluish-purple flame and the Sun Real Fire merged together and smashed onto the divine fire glass barrier together, directly burning this magic tool and the old man under it into ashes. Everything happened in an instant, so fast that True Monarch Hurricane didn't even have time to save them. Mr. Zhang Hai of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji had an incomparably grave expression. Bluish-purple flame, could it be the legendary nether evil flame with the strongest destructive power among the 7 great Sun Real Fires? The corners of True Monarch Hurricane's mouth twitched, looking towards Lin Feng, but discovered that Lin Feng didn't have any intention of paying attention to him. This made True Monarch Hurricane even more angered to the point that his entire body trembled. He just said that he wanted Lin Feng to take out another type of Sun Real Fire, and Xiaoyan immediately threw a nether evil flame at his face. What made his face hurt even more was the gazes of the surrounding people. A late-stage golden elixir cultivator of his own sect lost to the early-stage golden elixir Xiaoyan. This is simply the best explanation for Lin Feng's declaration of being invincible in the same realm. At this moment Yuanfeng's expression was also incomparably gloomy. Previously Xiaoyan using the Sun Real Fire to forcefully take on True Monarch Hurricane's attack already made him look at him in a whole new light. He knew that Xiaoyan was very fierce, but he never thought that he would actually be fierce to this extent. He raised his eyes and looked towards Lin Feng, his heart even more shivering. If the disciple is like this, then how terrifying would the master be? Deducing from this, Xiao Budian who closely follows beside Lin Feng is probably not any weaker than Xiaoyan. Previously in Sand Continent City, although Yuan Feng had also witnessed the scene of Xiao Budian defeating the Shushan sword cultivators when they were both at the foundation establishment stage, in his heart, he always subconsciously thought that it was because of Lin Feng's help. In Yuan Feng's opinion, Lin Feng's suppression towards the Shushan cultivators was definitely not as simple as suppressing their cultivation to the peak of the foundation establishment stage. When Xiao Budian fought, Lin Feng must have done something else. But now that he saw Xiaoyan's strength, Yuan Feng no longer dared to have such thoughts. He stared at Xiao Budian with a gaze full of fear. even now, he already has the strength to threaten Tianyi. If he is allowed to continue developing. The fear in Yu Wanfeng's heart turned even more into killing intent. Sure, Tianyi is an even more important chess piece for the future development of his Yu clan, and he absolutely cannot fail. Thinking of this, Yu Wanfeng was horrified and shocked, as he discovered something that he had always overlooked. In a mere half a year, Xiao Budian had actually risen from the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage to the golden elixir period. Such a terrifying speed, even Shi Tianyi, who was hailed as the proud son of heaven since he was young, and a future legend, could not achieve it. Yu Wanfeng stared fixedly at Xiao Budian, and discovered that compared to before, Xiao Budian's change in height and appearance was extremely limited. In other words, even if Xiao Budian borrowed the help of the heavenly passage to cultivate, the time he used was still very short. This discovery caused the fear and killing intent in his heart to boil to an uncontrollable point. Xiao Budian felt Yu Wanfeng's gaze, and looked over. His little face rarely had any smile. Silently he said, "What, the Yu clan also wants to give it a try?" Yu Wanfeng did not speak, and looked towards Lin Feng, only to discover that Lin Feng was also looking at him expressionlessly. The crowd of Yu clan cultivators all glared at Xiao Budian, but when they thought of Xiao Budian's performance back then in Sand Continent City, and then compared it to Xiao Yan's strength, it was as if a basin of cold water was poured over their hearts. A middle-aged man with the cultivation of the golden elixir period suddenly stood out, and loudly said, "Brat, don't be savage, I'll try you." Xiao Budian's face was expressionless, and he replaced Xiao Yan, "Come." That middle-aged man looked at Xiao Budian, and dryly coughed, "I haven't finished speaking." Chapter 212. The little guy moved his little arms and legs and expressionlessly looked at his opponent, "Come." The middle-aged Yu family cultivator coughed, "I haven't finished speaking." The little guy impatiently said, "If you have something to say, say it quickly." The surrounding crowd looked at the 11 or 12-year-old little guy and couldn't help but laugh. On Xianmen Tianzong's side, from Lin Feng down, everyone's gazes fell on Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan looked up to the sky and laughed, thinking, "Stinking brat, you didn't learn anything else, how did you learn this?" The middle-aged cultivator's mouth twitched, but he still patiently said, "Your noble sect is known to be invincible in fights of the same realm. Since that's the case, do you dare to fight one against two?" As soon as these words came out, the surrounding cultivators no longer cared about the Yu family's status and face, and all started to cheer. "Thicker skin. Why don't you fight him with 20 people? The opponent is still a child. Not only are you bullying the young, but now you want to bully him with numbers. Where did your age go? You're also worthy of being called the Great Qin Dynasty's 4 great families. The Yu family's face has been completely lost by you." Although they were all afraid of the powerful rise of Xianmen Tianzong, the words of the middle-aged Yu family cultivator made everyone feel disdain. Even if he won, so what if he won? It was simply an unfair victory. Even the Wind God sect cultivators who were on the same side looked at the Yu family with a slightly different gaze. Some of the Wind God sect cultivators who were standing closer even moved to the side. Only the middle-aged cultivator remained calmly standing in the same place. No matter how the crowd ridiculed him, he didn't take back his proposal to fight the little guy one-on-one. Among the Yu family members, many of the young cultivators had expressions of shame and indignation on their faces. They looked at the middle-aged cultivator in confusion. They really didn't understand why their elder would show such weakness. Only the Yu family members who were also in the golden elixir period maintained their calm like him. The Yuanying ancestor of the Yu family, Yu Wanfeng, who had always been hot-tempered, maintained a rare silence despite his gloomy expression. He did not say a word. When his appearance fell into Lin Feng's eyes, it immediately raised Lin Feng's vigilance. Lin Feng's thoughts spun slightly, and he already understood what Yu Wanfeng was planning. He sneered in his heart and said, "Good, he's planning to completely throw away his pride and kill Tiny Tot in a battle. You guys have really placed a heavy bet on that Shi Tianyi." Unfortunately, you will lose everything in the end. Seeing Xiao Budian turn to look at him, Lin Feng calmly nodded his head. The little guy's expression did not change at all. He turned around, extended his finger, and pointed at that middle-aged cultivator. You. Then, he pointed at the Yu clan cultivators beside the middle-aged cultivator. You, and you. The four of you can come at me together. Everyone was in an uproar. The four people pointed at by Tiny Tot were the four Golden Elixir period cultivators of the Yu clan. One was in the middle stage of the Golden Elixir period, and the other three were in the early stage of the Golden Elixir period. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran looked at each other. The current sect master of Beyond Heaven Mountain smiled bitterly in his heart. Like master, like disciple. Two of them ganged up on him, and he still thinks it's not enough. He wants to fight all four of them alone. Yang Tonghui also looked at Tiny Tot with interest. To advance to the Golden Elixir period in such a short time, did the sect master of the mysterious sect feed all the 7 heavenly connecting pills I gave to this little guy? That day in the Sand Continent City, in the Purple Chi small world, did this little guy really defeat that Shu Mountain Sword sect disciple by himself? Even though the few Aurus Core stage cultivators of the Yu family were already prepared to shed all pretense of cordiality, and only wanted to kill Xiao Budian, but being challenged by Xiao Budian like this, the four of them were unbearably angry. The leading middle-aged cultivator turned to look at Yuan Feng. Sixth uncle. Yuan Feng took a deep breath. Yoshine, I'll leave it to you. Don't disappoint me. The middle-aged cultivator Yu Yoshine nodded. He turned around and expressionlessly said, since the other party has brought it up, let's not disappoint them. Let's fight together. The 3 Golden Elixir period cultivators beside him nodded. The 4 of them went down and stood in 4 different directions, surrounding Tiny Tot in the middle. Rise! Yu Yoshine and the other 3 formed hand seals together and operated the Yu clan's mysterious underworld technique. White cold air surged out from their bodies and instantly linked together, enveloping the surrounding space in a cold mist. In the mist, a pure and transparent blue ice soul appeared in front of Yu Yoshine. It emitted endless cold air. It was the mysterious underworld True Water. The other 3 also activated the mysterious underworld True Water. The 4 Golden Elixir period cultivators attacked together. The cold air of the mysterious underworld True Water instantly turned the entire wasteland from early summer into winter. This time, we must cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Just as he was about to attack, Yu Yoshine was suddenly startled because he suddenly couldn't sense Tiny Tot's position in the center of the ice mist. The next moment, Yu Yoshine heard a series of screams in his ears. That voice definitely didn't belong to Tiny Tot, who was still a child. Next, Yu Yoshine heard the deafening roar of wind and thunder. The galloping storm and running thunder tore apart the thick ice mist together. Tiny Tot appeared in front of him. Wind and thunder coiled around his body like a ghost. Yu Yoshine's eyes swept over and his body suddenly turned cold. His 3 companions had all been knocked over by Tiny Tot. They fell from the sky to the ground, splashing sand and dust. Yu Yoshine felt that he had overestimated Tiny Tot's cultivation, but it turned out that Tiny Tot was more ferocious than he had imagined. He didn't dare to hesitate. He turned his hand and took out a small blue banner. This small blue banner flew into the air and suddenly emitted a dazzling ice blue light. A bone-chilling aura immediately filled the surroundings. Upon coming into contact with this aura, the onlookers, including those whose cultivation was below the Golden Elixir realm, all shivered as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Everyone was shocked. They were far away and weren't the target of the small blue banner, but they could still feel such a strong chill. How could the power of this small blue banner be so domineering? Someone with sharp eyes quickly recognized it. This is the Yu family's mysterious underworld banner, a magic weapon of the Yuanying realm. The magical power fluctuations of this mysterious underworld banner were exactly the same as Yuanfeng's own magical power aura. Everyone's eyes turned to Yuanfeng. No one had expected Yuan Feng to be so ruthless as to secretly give his own magic weapon, the mysterious underworld banner, to Yu Yoxin. He was really afraid that Yu Yoxin and the others wouldn't be able to kill Tiny Tot. Yang Tonghui frowned and looked at Yuan Feng. This time, the Yu family is really shameless. But is it really necessary? Could it be that there are other grudges between that little guy and them? Yuan Feng turned a blind eye to the gossiping gazes of the onlookers. He only stared at Lin Feng, afraid that Lin Feng would suddenly intervene to save Tiny Tot. He didn't do it himself because he was worried that Lin Feng would be alerted. Therefore, he secretly lent the mysterious underworld banner to Yu Yoxin and the others to kill Tiny Tot here. If Lin Feng tried to save Tiny Tot, he would immediately stop him. Yang Tonghui also turned to look at Lin Feng. Are you still not going to make a move? A magic weapon of the Yuanying realm is completely different. As he was thinking, Yang Tonghui glanced at Tiny Tot, and his eyes immediately widened. Tiny Tot was not afraid of the mysterious underworld banner at all. He first bombarded the mysterious underworld true water released by the mysterious underworld banner with his unlimited wind and thunder. After accumulating power for a long time, his unlimited wind and thunder were not at a disadvantage in terms of power. However, the mysterious underworld true water released by the mysterious underworld banner was completely different from the mysterious underworld true water released by Yu Yoxin and the others. It contained Yuan Feng's understanding and comprehension of the mysteries of space as a Yuanying realm cultivator. The extreme cold ice soul seemed to be able to freeze even space. It surrounded Tiny Tot's wind and thunder power layer by layer and squeezed towards the center. Tiny Tot was not in a hurry. He stretched out his hand and patted his head. Go! A green light appeared above his head, and a small three-legged cauldron flew out from the green light. Following Tiny Tot's thoughts, the three-legged cauldron suddenly shook and disappeared from its original position. It directly crossed space and appeared in front of Yu Yoxin at the same time it disappeared. Yu Yoxin was shocked. How is this possible? I used Sixth Uncle's mysterious underworld banner to activate the mysterious underworld true water. It can seal that space. Wait, this is also a Yuanying realm magic weapon? The surrounding crowd let out cries of surprise. Those with good eyesight could see that Tiny Tot's bronze void cauldron was the same as Yu Yoxin's mysterious underworld banner. Although they were both Yuanying realm magic weapons, they were very different. Yu Yoxin's mysterious underworld banner had the same magic power and aura as Yuan Feng's. That was Yuan Feng's life magic weapon, and it was only temporarily lent to Yu Yoxin to use. However, the bronze void cauldron's aura was completely the same as Tiny Tot's. In other words, this Yuanying realm magic weapon simply belonged to Tiny Tot himself. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran glanced at each other. Meng Chaoran slightly shook his head, and Wu Yunliang also sighed. He looked towards Lin Feng, and felt that Lin Feng was more and more unfathomable. A golden elixir period disciple was bestowed with a Yuanying realm magic weapon. This simply cannot be described as extravagant. That is a Yuanying realm magic weapon, not a Yuanying realm talisman. Wu Yunliang himself had a daughter, but even if she was his daughter, Wu Yunliang did not have a Yuanying realm magic weapon to bestow upon her to protect her. At this moment, Wu Yunliang looked at Xiao Yan and the other disciples behind Lin Feng, and secretly speculated in his heart, if everyone has a Yuanying realm magic weapon, then it's really, all the spectators' emotions fluctuated. In the middle of the battle, Yu Yoxin hurriedly waved the mysterious underworld banner to protect her body, and faced the incoming bronze void cauldron. The two great Yuanying realm magic weapons collided head-on. The bronze void cauldron collided with the mysterious underworld true water released by the mysterious underworld banner. Circles of ripples appeared on the surface of the blue ice soul, as if they were water waves. It was only at this moment that the solid mysterious underworld true water truly began to have a bit of the appearance of water. The bronze void cauldron and the mysterious underworld banner were locked in a stalemate, but Tiny Tot used his own spatial power to break the mysterious underworld banner's spatial seal. Tiny Tot stepped on wind and thunder, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Yu Yoshin. The violent lightning struck Yu Yoshin and sent her flying. Looking at Tiny Tot standing proudly in the air, and the 4 golden elixir period cultivators of the Yu clan all lying on the ground like dead dogs, all the spectators were dumbstruck. Lin Feng's words involuntarily emerged in their minds. In the same realm, my Xianmen Tianzong disciples are invincible. Chapter 213. Yu Wanfeng watched as Yu Yoshin and the other 3 were swept to the ground like garbage by the little guy. He couldn't help but be dumbstruck. Then, Yu Wanfeng wanted to slap himself. If he could give the Yuanying magic tool to Yu Yoshin and the others, then why couldn't Lin Feng? However, what was still unexpected was that Lin Feng directly gave the bronze void cauldron to the little guy and let the little guy completely refine it so that it would belong to the little guy. This made him speculate about Lin Feng's strength. He doesn't take the Yuanying magic tool seriously and casually gave it to his disciple. This person's cultivation is probably far above the Yuanying stage. If this is the case, even my Yu family will have to be cautious. Although Yu Wanfeng's mind was filled with many thoughts, it was only a moment before he came back to his senses because something that almost made him go crazy happened in front of him. After the little guy knocked over Yu Yoshin and the other 3, he looked at the temporarily out-of-control mysterious underworld banner and smiled. Yeah, this thing is not bad, I want it. While speaking, the little guy controlled the bronze void cauldron and spat out a green light. It directly swept up the mysterious underworld banner and put it into the cauldron. Yu Wanfeng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Little bastard, you're courting death. He used his magic power to communicate with the mysterious underworld banner and wanted to come out of the bronze void cauldron. Yu Wanfeng was the true owner of the mysterious underworld banner. The mysterious underworld banner was his life magic tool, so the 2 of them were incomparably close. His cultivation was also far higher than the little guy's. With this summon, the mysterious underworld banner was about to break the imprisonment of the bronze void cauldron. At this time, Lin Feng chuckled, this thing will be the prize of this battle. While laughing, Lin Feng pointed with his finger and a purple aura turned into a small world that supported the bronze void cauldron. The disturbance caused by the mysterious underworld banner in the cauldron immediately quieted down and was suppressed. The little guy hugged the bronze void cauldron and smiled, I said you're mine, so you're mine. Yu Wanfeng was angered to the point smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He couldn't care about anything else as he roared madly. All the magic power in his body surged violently, transforming into piercingly cold air that pounced towards Xiao Budian. Seeing this, Miao Shihao chuckled, we are old sweethearts. We should get closer. As he spoke, Miao Shihao had already stepped forward bravely, bringing Xiao Budian back and blocking Yu Wanfeng's path at the same time. You thing that's neither a man nor a woman, get out of my way. Yu Wanfeng shouted, and the Xianming true water gushed out, turning into endless ice. Miao Shihao did not use the reflective mirror this time, nor did he use the Adumbra's spell. Instead, he chuckled and said, unfortunately, you will be the one to piss off in the end. He made an orchid gesture with his right hand and pointed it at Yu Wanfeng's Xianming true water. Immediately, a surging stream of water greeted it. Of the 4 arts of illusionary flower, reflection, water art, surging waves water. This is the spell that Miao Shihao cultivated with the first sky water. Lin Feng watched this scene with interest. He saw that Yu Wanfeng's Xianming true water crashed into Miao Shihao's vast waves spell and was instantly dispelled into nothingness. As Yu Wanfeng shouted angrily, the Xianming true water continuously attacked Miao Shihao, but was easily dispelled by Miao Shihao's vast waves. The eyes of Yang Tonghui, Wu Yunliang, and the others also lit up. Everyone knew that true monarch mirror flower Miao Shihao had 2 ultimate skills, the reflective mirror and the Adumbra's flower. This was also the origin of his honorific title. Today, however, Miao Shihao had displayed a brand new spell. This spell seemed ordinary, but the mysterious power contained within it caused everyone present to shiver inwardly. Even the Xianming True Water, one of the 6 great true waters in the world, could not surpass it. The power of Miao Shihao's vast waves was evident. Could it be that Miao Shihao's spell can dispel all spells into nothingness? Lin Feng guessed. Then, he saw Miao Shihao's vast waves finally turn from defense to offense, rushing towards Yuan Feng. At this moment, Yuan Feng had also regained his composure. Not daring to be careless, he hurriedly used the Xianming True Water to protect himself. The blue ice soul was like an ice castle, firmly protecting Yuan Feng inside. However, the seemingly indestructible castle was like a pile of sand in front of the surging waves. With just one wave, it collapsed. Even Yuan Feng, who was dumbfounded inside, was also swept to the left and right. "Sixth brother, this is too ugly." A cold voice suddenly sounded, and a spatial crack appeared beside Yuan Feng. An old man with a goatee and a gloomy and cold expression stepped out of the spatial crack. With a raise of his hand, a vast amount of Xianming True Water turned into a barrier, blocking the vast waves that were forcing Yuan Feng into a sorry state. The drenched Yuan Feng had an awkward expression. Fifth brother, hearing such a form of address, even if he had never seen this old man with a goatee, Lin Feng knew this person's identity. The other Yuanying ancestor of the Yu clan, Yu Qianshan, was respectfully addressed as fifth great uncle by the disciples of the clan. His magical power and magical abilities were above Yuan Feng's, having already reached the middle stage of the Yuanying stage. But at this moment, Lin Feng's attention was not completely on him. With a thought, Lin Feng turned his head to look at the distant horizon. There, the void suddenly opened, and 3 sword lights flew out. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of everyone. The person in the lead was a young man dressed in a hemp robe with a cold expression. He was the great sword cultivator of the Yuanying stage of Shu Mountain, Kong Chang. On Kong Chang's left, there was a sword light in the form of a green cloud. After it stopped, its figure was revealed. It was a refined old man. And on Kong Chang's right, there was a sword light that was like a blazing flame. From within the flames, a middle-aged man with a rough face walked out with his head held high. Seeing them, Yang Tonghui faintly frowned, introducing to Lin Feng, that hemp-robe youth is the head disciple of the Li Xiong sword branch of Shu Mountain, Li Xiong True Lord Kong Chang. That old man is the Cellerita's sword sect's ancestor Qing Hao. His cultivation is extremely high and his seniority in the Cellerita's sword sect is also extremely high. That middle-aged man is the Blaze sword sect's ancestor Flying Fire. Lin Feng faintly nodded his head. He still remembered 2 years ago when he had just taken Xiao Yan in as his disciple in Wuzhou City, he once had some dirty dealings with the Blaze sword sect. Even though in the end it was that golden elixir period elder of the Blaze sword sect who was defeated by Lin Feng using tricks, but for the Qi disciple stage Lin Feng at that time, that was one of the few dangerous moments after he came to this world. As for the Cellerita's sword sect, Lin Feng subconsciously turned his head to look at Xiao Yan. Indeed he saw that Xiao Yan's fists were lightly clenched. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran looked at each other, Meng Chaoran lightly shook his head. Xianmen Tianzong is probably going to be bad this time, there are more and more enemies. Hearing this, Wu Yunliang deeply agreed. The moment Kong Chang appeared, his 2 sword-like sharp gaze swept across everyone's faces, finally stopping on Lin Feng. He was secretly surprised in his heart, just what is this person's cultivation, I actually can't see through it at all. But as a sword cultivator he has always been fearless. His eyes stared straight at Lin Feng, coldly saying, "You are that master of the Xian Gate, Lin Feng?" Kong Chang's divine sense swept out and immediately heard the surrounding discussions, his eyebrows instantly raised. In the same realm, your Xianmen Tianzong disciples are invincible in fights? Ha, what big words! He slowly pulled out the long sword from his waist, holding it flat in front of his chest. In that case, I, Kong Chang of Shu Mountain, wish to fight with you, do you dare to accept? The surrounding people were all in an uproar. Although they already knew that Shu Mountain sword cultivators were domineering and direct, but they didn't expect Kong Chang to directly challenge Lin Feng as soon as he appeared. Yang Tonghui frowned and said, "Brother Kong, it's going to be the opening day of Xianmen Tianzong soon, isn't it too disrespectful for you to choose this time to challenge?" Kong Chang replied expressionlessly, "We sword cultivators talk about the way of the sword, not etiquette. You don't even understand this principle. The heavenly sword sect has really been corrupted by a comfortable life. You." Yang Tonghui's eyes narrowed, suddenly a cold light flashed. Elder Qing Wei, who was beside Kong Chang, took a step forward at this time and said lightly, "Tonghui, we all belong to the Nine Heavens Sword Alliance, we are of the same branch, don't hurt the harmony." Yang Tonghui's face darkened, standing opposite Elder Qing Wei, they were both silent. Kang Nanhua suddenly said, "True Immortal Yang speaks righteously, and I, Xianmen Tianzong, am deeply moved." He took a step forward, looked at Kong Chang calmly, and said lightly, "If my sect leader makes a move, he will be suspected of bullying the weak. Since True Immortal Yang insists on fighting, I will accompany you." Kong Chang snorted coldly, "You?" On the other side, Elder Feihua laughed, "Stop talking nonsense, let's fight first." In the midst of his laughter, his whole body turned into a fiery light across the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Kong Nanhua. The blazing flames dyed half the sky red, and the cold brought by Yuanfeng's Xianming True Water disappeared in an instant. Everyone felt as if they were in a furnace. Kong Nanhua didn't care at all, but as if nothing had happened, he flicked his finger, and a water droplet flew into the air, just in time to meet Elder Feihua's fiery sword light. At first, Elder Feihua didn't care, but when the tip of his sword touched the water droplet, he immediately discovered the problem. The water droplet suddenly exploded, and the seemingly small droplet instantly turned into a lake. The huge amount of water made people gasp in amazement. Kong Nanhua flicked his finger repeatedly, and one water droplet after another met Elder Feihua's sword light. All the water droplets exploded and merged together, as if the four seas were pouring down, and the Milky Way was flowing backwards. Primordial True Water. Elder Feihua came from a large sect and was very knowledgeable, so he immediately recognized Kong Nanhua's magical power. He didn't dare to meet it head-on, and immediately retreated on his sword light. No matter who it was an extremely stupid choice to fight a battle of attrition with an enemy who was at the same level as him, but had cultivated the primordial true water. Seeing this, Kong Chang's eyes brightened. "Good, you do have the ability to fight with me." After saying this, the originally ordinary Kong Chang's body suddenly emitted a shocking sharpness, as if his whole body was a sword. An unsheathed divine sword that was about to split the heavens and the earth. Whoosh! 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 Kong Chang's hemp robe was completely torn apart, and boundless, extremely bright light shot out from his body. Countless rays of sword light instantly filled the world where he was. Kong Chang's whole body turned into a sword of light filled with killing intent, and he attacked Kong Nanhua like a rainbow piercing through the sun. Shu Shan's Li Meng's sword weapon only used one sword in a battle of magical powers to kill. Usually, the myriad of sword chi would be hidden in one's body, and one would have to endure the endless pain of being sliced by thousands of blades. Before harming the enemy, one would first injure oneself. However, in the instant that the sword was drawn, all the sword chi and spiritual power in one's body would burst forth, and it would be extremely sharp. At this moment, when Kong Chang used it, it was even more shocking. Everyone's gaze was focused on Kong Nanhua. The Li Meng sword weapon lives up to its name. Kong Nanhua's expression did not change when facing Kong Chang's sword. He only sighed softly. In the next instant, the sand of the Ganges River and the primordial true water appeared in front of him. Chapter 214. Facing Kong Chang's ferocious sword, Kong Nanhua's palms came together, and the two great mystiques, Ganges sand and primordial true water, activated together. A grain of Ganges sand and a drop of primordial true water combined, and then countless grains of sand and water fused together to form a shield in front of Kang Nanhua. The shield was a perfect circle, and the surface of the shield was covered with runes that looked like rivers. Each river was connected to each other, and seemed to flow without stopping. It was impossible to tell where the source was, and where the end was. It seemed endless. Kang Nanhua had fused the power of the primordial chaos true water into her original Ganges River sand shield, transforming it into an indestructible Ganges River immemorial shield. Seeing Kang Nanhua's Ganges primordial true water, Lin Feng was no longer worried for him. Kang Nanhua's original Ganges sand shield had the property that even if it was broken by the enemy's first wave of attacks, the scattered quicksand could quickly reform and continue to defend against the enemy's attacks. But since it could be broken, it meant that it still had a weakness. A defense made purely of Ganges sand was not thick enough. Now that it had been merged with primordial true water, its toughness instantly increased by a level. When Kang Nanhua had given the Ganges primordial shield to Xiao Yan and the others, he had not yet passed the lightning tribulation and entered Yuanying. And now that Kang Nanhua had reached the Yuanying stage, it could be said that his Ganges primordial shield was the strongest defense an early Yuanying cultivator could have. The seemingly ordinary shield exuded an eternal and indestructible power. The sword qi and spiritual power that Kong Chang had nurtured in his body for 1,000 years burst out at once, gathering into a resplendent sword light. His Li Ferocious sword might not be as domineering as the Shaoshang sword, but in terms of targeting a single point of attack, it was definitely number one in Shushan. It was even one of the strongest attacks in the entire heaven primal world. The endless sword light seemed to pierce through the heavens and earth, and it bombarded Kang Nanhua's Ganges primordial shield like lightning. Quicksand flew, and countless fragments of sand and gravel fell from the Ganges primordial shield. Even a rare treasure like the Ganges sand would lose its spirituality after being bombarded by the Li Ferocious sword. But even when Kong Chang's sword energy was exhausted and the sword light dissipated, he still could not pierce through Kang Nanhua's eternal river mixed essence shield. At this moment, there was a huge depression in the center of the shield, which looked like a funnel. It was only one step away from being pierced by the sword. However, this one step seemed to be so close yet so far away, and it was impossible to cross. When the onlookers saw this, their expressions all changed. Ancestor Qing Wei looked at Kang Nanhua and sighed, "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Forefather Soaring Fire and Yang Tonghui both had grave expressions on their faces. Regardless of where they stood, they were both astonished by Kang Nanhua's strength. Mount Shu Sword Sect was the #1 sword sect in the world. It was one of the 3 holy lands. Its disciples were all sword cultivators. They didn't practice spells or refine magic tools. They fought all over the world with a long sword. Their attacks were sharp and their fights were fierce. They were famous in the world. There was even a private saying that Mount Shu cultivators are 1 level higher. This means that in actual combat, any Mount Shu sword cultivator can fight against other cultivators that are at least 1 small realm higher. Taking Kong Chang as an example, with early-stage Yuanying cultivation, even middle-stage Yuanying cultivators would have to avoid the fierce might of the Li Fierce sword. But right now Kong Chang wanted to challenge Lin Feng, but was stopped by Kang Nanhua. Ancestor Qing Wei looked at Lin Feng and Xiao Yan with an incomparably complicated gaze. "Xian Men Tianzong, this matter is really a bit difficult to handle." At this time, the general manager of the House of the Marquis of Xuanji also looked at Lin Feng and Zhu Yi beside him, sighing and saying, "Young Master Yi, it's only been a short 2 years and you've actually trained all the way to the Golden Elixir period from a scholar without the slightest bit of cultivation. Such talent, no wonder you're the son of the Marquis." Since appearing, Zhu Yi, who has always been quietly standing behind Lin Feng, has actually always divided a part of his attention on Zhang Hai. Hearing Zhang Hai say this, Zhu Yi faintly smiled. "Mr. Tao Er also said this in the past. I answered him at the time that father's cultivation is profound, that is father's ability. My cultivation today stems from my own hard work and my master's teachings. Up until today, my answer still hasn't changed. Zhu Yi calmly said, Mr. Zhang Hai doesn't need to say things like bringing me back, you can't do it. But you can go back and report to Father, Tianjing City, one day I will return, and that day is already not far away. Zhang Hai's eyes slightly narrowed into slits. I will naturally deal with the matter of Tao Er being killed. After dealing with it, I will definitely bring young Master Yi back. Young Master Yi, you think too much. He looked at Lin Feng, you have bewitched my young master and killed my steward, today you must give me an explanation. Lin Feng at this moment already knew Zhang Hai's background from Zhu Yi, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he lightly said, the great Zhou dynasty, in the end, is still the emperor of Zhou, Liang Pan, who calls the shots. This sentence without rhyme or reason made everyone at the scene scratch their heads. Zhang Hai frowned, less nonsense, the traitor will be executed. As he spoke, Zhang Hai stretched out the finger of his right hand and casually waved, writing the word, punish, in the air. Zhang Hai's mana turned into ink, and the air seemed to turn into a piece of paper in front of him, a big black, punish, word appeared in the air. As soon as this word appeared, a solemn and dignified aura spread out, suppressing everyone at the scene so that they couldn't raise their heads. Some cultivators with lower cultivation seemed to see an image of themselves kneeling on the guillotine, a large blade raised high above their heads, struggling to resist but to no avail, they could only obediently surrender. Lin Feng stood in the air without any reaction, not even looking at Zhang Hai. Beside him, Zhu Yi suddenly took a step forward and slowly said, Mr. Zhang, I told you, you can't do it. Zhu Yi also stretched out his finger, but using it as a sword, he swung it twice. It was the Qian sword Dao and Dui sword Dao of his self-created sword of change. Upper Qian, lower Dui, Lu hexagram. Heaven's grace, a gentleman is magnanimous. Zhu Yi lightly said, a strong ruler must be courteous and reasonable. Mr. Zhang did not teach, he did not have a good name, he is unreasonable, he is not upright. As soon as Zhu Yi's two-sword qi shot out, a magical force spread out, directly dissolving the horrifying aura of Zhang Hai's, punish, word into nothingness. Zhang Hai shook his head and smiled, this is the fallacy that young Master Yi has learned for the past 2 years, the biggest fallacy in the world. This time, he didn't write anything, his words were the law, the punish word immediately turned into the Dui word, breaking Zhu Yi's sword Dao of Lu trigram. Zhu Yi slightly raised his eyebrows, using force to break technique? Mr. Zhang has run out of words. As he said, the golden elixir in Zhu Yi's body shook violently, one black and one white aura surrounded him. One side was the pure light that repelled all things, the other side was the quiet and deep darkness that contained all things. Zhu Yi sent out 2 more streams of sword qi. This time, one of his sword qi was black and the other was white. One was the Zhen sword Dao while the other was the Ken sword Dao. Upper Zhen, lower Kan, Meng hexagram. Meng hexagram, enlightenment, success. I beg Tong Meng beg me. First blaspheme, third blaspheme, 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 blaspheme. It's not that I'm begging the child, but the child is begging me. This is the first time he's asking me for advice, I'll answer his questions, if he keeps asking impolitely, again and again, it's blasphemy. At this time, he didn't answer. As soon as Zhu Yi's sword Dao of Meng hexagram was used, Zhang Hai's Dui word formula's magic power was locked. Zhang Hai shook his head and laughed, the powerful magic power of a Yuanian cultivator burst out, instantly breaking through Zhu Yi's sword qi. Zhu Yi didn't panic, he suddenly made a hand sign with both hands and combined them together, chanting slowly, infinite light, infinite darkness, the beginning of the 2 poles, the creation of the heavens. When Zhu Yi's black and white sword qi appeared, a smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. This is the second spell that Zhu Yi created after he formed the golden elixir, comprehended the 8 trigrams of the great way of the heavens, and combined it with his own cultivation in Dao techniques. As Zhu Yi put his hands together, the two black and white sword qi that he released suddenly changed, turning into the two poles of light and darkness, forming a huge enchantment. This enchantment looked like an altar, it looked like a mandala flower, but it wasn't a mandala flower. Countless bright and dazzling light rays intertwined with the same number of dark and deep black lines, forming lines that looked like the orbit of the stars in the sky. Together, they weaved an independent small world. Zhu Yi's second self-created spell, the Light and Darkness Mandala Enchantment. Zhang Hai's expression suddenly changed, and then he saw the light and darkness enchantment created by Zhu Yi suddenly shrink towards a very small point in the center, as if the whole world was collapsing. This was because Zhu Yi, under the guidance of Lin Feng, had comprehended some of the true meaning of the power of nirvanic extermination, and he had exerted the destructive power of his spell to the extreme. The entire light and darkness enchantment collapsed, and even Zhang Hai's magic power that was sealed inside disappeared. Are the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong still human? The onlookers were shocked speechless. Apart from Xiao Yan just now, this is another cultivator of the Golden Elixir period who can fight against Patriarch Yuanying. A group of monsters. Xianmen Tianzong is actually so strong. Zhang Hai's expression also changed. He took a deep breath, and suddenly took out an ink brush, and said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yi, I have to admit that you have surprised me, but it also strengthened my belief that I must bring you back to the Ho Mansion." Seeing this, Lin Feng smiled, and with a flick of his finger, a white thunderbolt entered Zhu Yi's body. "Xiao Yi, go all out and fight with your chief steward." Zhu Yi became spirited, and faced Zhang Hai head-on without fear. On the other side, Yu Qianshan was holding Miao Shihao back, and Yu Wanfeng could go all out. Sixth brother Yu stared at the little one, and his eyes flashed fiercely. Without saying a word, he directly pounced on the little one. True Lord Hurricane snorted coldly, "You, Xianmen Tianzong, don't know when to retreat, you deserve to die today." As he spoke, he also urged the nine heavens formless astral wind to attack. The group of Yu family cultivators and Wind God sect disciples also followed behind their respective ancestors, and attacked Lin Feng and the others. Lin Feng leisurely smiled, and turned to look at Xiao Yan and the others. "This is an opportunity to train, you must cherish it." Xiao Yan laughed heartily, and said, "This is a good opportunity for the world to see the glory of my Xianmen Tianzong disciples, we should thank them." Well said. Lin Feng smiled, and with a flick of his finger again, an earthy yellow light fell on Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan laughed loudly, and unceremoniously faced True Lord Hurricane. The little one's speed was faster than him, and with a flash of green light, he had already disappeared into the void, and in the next moment, he appeared in front of Yu Wanfeng. Wu Yungliang was dumbfounded, and looked at Meng Chaoran, and both of them were shocked. This profound gate master is so confident, he actually let his group of Golden Elixir period disciples fight with Yuanying period cultivators. Meng Chaoran's gaze was fixed on Lin Feng. Why didn't he take action himself? Why is he so confident in his disciples? Is it because he doesn't care, or is there another reason? Chapter 215. The group of cultivators from the Yu clan and the Wind God sect also followed behind their respective patriarchs, launching attacks towards Lin Feng and the others. They didn't dare to provoke Xiao Yan's group, and they didn't dare to provoke Lin Feng's group. It was better for their ancestors to deal with those monsters. A group of Foundation Establishment stage cultivators led by Shu Xianshi and a few Golden Elixir period cultivators charged towards Wang Lin's group. Wang Lin's expression was cold. He didn't say anything, but his magic power fluctuated violently. Black qi surged out of his body and he directly entered the Yellow Spring's death state. Today, he was going to start a massacre. Yu Hongyan's movements were faster than him. His 12-feet-long black flame halberd swept up a sky full of black qi as he killed his way into the crowd. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows slightly. "Little junior brother and the others aren't exaggerating. Such a fierce woman, she really isn't inferior to men. However, speaking of men, He turned his head to look at the other side. Yang Qing looked at the crowd charging at him and took a deep breath. I want to repay Senior's great kindness. Other than death, there's nothing to be afraid of. Although that was the case, Yang Qing's previous sect, Cloudwater Cavern, couldn't even be considered a small shrimp in front of the Yu Clan and Wind God sect. When Yang Qing fought with her opponents, she always felt that she couldn't fight freely. He wasn't good at fighting in the first place. This way, this flaw was magnified by several times. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't look back. After killing a Wind God sect cultivator with one finger, he said to Yang Qing, "Fight freely, you're very strong." While Yang Qing was in a daze, Wind God sect's Golden Core stage cultivator Shu Xianxue had already rushed in front of him. Seeing the lunar true water that Yang Qing had released, his eyes immediately turned red. Such a rare treasure, falling into your hands is a waste of God's gift, give it to me. As he spoke, purple light suddenly flashed in front of him. Violent flames gushed out from the light. Shu Xianxue screamed, "Purple talisman! Yuanying talisman!" He hurriedly used Nine Heavens' formless astral wind to escape, but he was already swallowed by the flames. Wang Lin flicked his sleeves. "You talk too much." He looked at the dumbfounded Yang Qing and said, "Let's go all out and fight. If we can't beat them, we can use the talismans to smash them. The talismans that Master gave us are not meant for us to keep." Yang Qing was a little absent-minded, but then she calmed down, and her eyes gradually became spirited. In front of him, a group of Yu Clan cultivators rushed over. Someone took out the Xianming True Water and attacked him. Yang Qing calmly responded and attacked with the extreme Yin True Water. The dark green water curled around the deep blue ice soul. That Yu Clan cultivator immediately felt that he lost control of his Xianming True Water. The lunar True Water was able to control water with water, and it was the commander of all water. In a situation where the lunar True Water was outnumbered, it could even control the other 5 types of absolute water. Yang Qing's realm of magic power might not necessarily be higher than his opponent's, but he had absorbed an entire Taiyin water vein from Mount Kunlun back then. At this moment, the Taiyin True Water swept past like a torrent, and the Xianming True Water of the Yu family's cultivators succumbed to his control. Yang Qing's hands formed a seal, and the Xianming True Water counterattacked the enemy, instantly freezing more than 10 Yu Clan's foundation establishment stage cultivators into ice sculptures. If they were frozen by the Xianming True Water, even their souls would be frozen, and they were doomed to die. Wang Lin looked at Yang Qing's calm expression, which hid a crazy killing intent. He slightly raised his eyebrows, and the corner of his mouth revealed a slight smile. He casually pointed, and the Yellow Springs Road appeared. Thousands of white bone claws rushed out from the road, dragging the enemies down and burying them in the cycle of reincarnation. When this scene fell into the eyes of the onlookers, it already made some people feel despair. Even a foundation establishment stage disciple is so savage. Is he really invincible in the same realm? Although his nephews suffered heavy casualties, Yuan Feng couldn't care about them at this moment. All his attention was focused on killing Xiao Budian. But unfortunately, Xiao Budian was stronger than he imagined. Xiao Budian, whose body had merged with the bronze void cauldron, could use the help of this magic tool to travel through space within a short distance like Yuan Feng. He wasn't afraid of the threat of Yuan Feng's Yuanying stage cultivator sealing and shattering space. This greatly reduced the difference in strength between him and Yuan Feng. At this moment, Yuan Feng surpassed him in terms of combat experience and the boundless magic power of a Yuanying stage cultivator that could almost crush a golden elixir stage cultivator. Xiao Budian didn't panic. "Your magic power is better than mine, but there are some areas where you are too far behind me." Before he finished speaking, Xiao Budian's figure flashed, broke through space, and arrived in front of Yuan Feng. He punched towards him. Yuan Feng snorted disdainfully. Just as he was about to condense his magic power, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. The speed of Xiao Budian's punch was far faster than usual. The violent power was like a gale and thunder. It was extremely fast, and at the same time, the power was also extremely strong. There wasn't the slightest bit of finesse. Other than power, there was speed, and other than speed, there was power. Faster than a gale, fiercer than thunder. Physical body martial Tao, tempest heavenly movement. After Xiao Budian formed his gold core, he had comprehended and created this second divine ability from the 8 trigrams great heavenly Tao canon. At this moment, his body hadn't fully matured yet, but it was filled with shocking power. All the muscles and bones in his body were crackling and jumping wildly. Every acupoint and every pore on his body was constantly flowing with electricity, emitting a sizzling sound. The hair on Xiao Budian's clothes rustled because of the electricity. However, even the dust in the air of the realm he belonged to was firmly fixed by the powerful electricity, unable to move. Yuan Feng was greatly shocked. He didn't have time to think carefully, and the Xianming True Water quickly gathered to form a shield, blocking Xiao Budian's punch. Boom! Amidst the rumbling sound, the azure ice shield formed by the Xianming True Water was actually forcefully shattered by Xiao Budian's punch that carried the wind and thunder of heaven and earth. Although Yuan Feng himself was unharmed, his face was ashen. He clearly knew that if this punch landed on his body, he would definitely die. Xiao Budian's magic power was indeed inferior to his, but his physical body martial Tao was much stronger than his. The difference in physical strength between the two was even greater than Yuan Feng's advantage in magic power over Xiao Budian. Yuan Feng fought with Xiao Budian with a gloomy face. On the other side, True Monarch Hurricane was also in a terrible mood. With the help of the Heaven and Earth Mirror, Xiao Yan completely gave up on defense. The 8 trigrams collapsed, the nether evil flame, and the true fire of the sun bombarded True Monarch Hurricane indiscriminately, beating this old monster of the Yuanying stage into a sorry state. There was no need to mention True Monarch Hurricane's frustration. The magic power of the Wind God's sect was characterized by its swiftness and swiftness. Naturally, it was good at attacking and not good at defending. However, Xiao Yan had the protection of the divine earth light in the center of the heaven and earth mirror, so he directly ignored his attacks. Then, with his extraordinary attack power, True Monarch Hurricane, who was not good at defense, ran around and dodged his attacks. True Monarch Hurricane looked no more than 13 or 14 years old. His black hair hung down, his face was like a jade crown, and his appearance was elegant and scholarly. But in fact, he was someone who had reincarnated once, and his lifespan was already thousands of years old. Now, he was being forced into a difficult situation by a young man, so True Monarch Hurricane could no longer stay calm. He suddenly put his palms together and performed a strange incantation. Instantly, hundreds of 9 heavens formless astral winds merged together. The originally formless astral winds were squeezed together layer by layer, forming a huge sword that was dozens of feet long, a few feet wide, and nearly 5 feet thick. This enormous sword hung in the sky while flowing with brilliant colors, and even an ordinary person could see its existence with the naked eye. It had completely abandoned the characteristic of the 9 heavens formless gale that was shapeless and shadowless, yet it revealed an all-conquering and extremely fierce force. Divine Wind Sword Qi. As soon as the sword was used, everyone was shocked. The attack power and destructive power of True Monarch Hurricane's magic was almost comparable to Kong Chang's Li Meng sword. The Heaven and Earth Mirror definitely could not withstand this sword. Seeing this, Xiao Yan chuckled and said, "You take a sword of mine too." He put away the Heaven and Earth Mirror and True Sun Fire, and a huge edgeless sword that was as wide as a door and looked like a heavy black iron ruler appeared in his hand. Evil Radiant Dominating Sword. Xiao Yan raised the Evil Radiant Dominating Sword high, and endless bluish-purple flames covered the entire sky, dyeing the night sky even darker and gloomier. The concept of destruction contained in the bluish-purple flames was even fiercer and more brutal than the divine wind sword Qi in the sky. Flaming Heaven Splitting Slash. After Xiao Yan formed his gold core, he comprehended the second divine power he created from the 8 trigrams Great Tao Canon. With a loud shout, Xiao Yan slashed out with his sword and collided with the divine wind sword Qi that was slashing towards him. A dark purple mark was left in the night sky, as if the entire sky had been split into 2. The scattered air currents directly caused a sandstorm in the wasteland, and the dark night sky was also illuminated by this violent collision of wind and fire. In an instant, the sounds of other battles became muffled, and everyone could only hear the collision of flames and wind. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at Xiao Yan in disbelief, who was holding the evil radiant dominating sword high in the sky. Even the divine wind sword Qi that true monarch Hurricane used with all his strength couldn't do anything to him. Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and Tiny Tot, 3 early-stage golden elixir cultivators, fought against the 3 Yuanying ancestors, true monarch Hurricane, Zhang Hai, and Yuan Feng, and didn't fall into a disadvantage. The rise of Xianmen Tianzong is unstoppable. Wu Yunliang, who had been watching coldly from the side, suddenly let out a long breath. Meng Chaoran, who was beside him, turned his head and looked at him. Eldest martial brother, have you decided? Wu Yunliang nodded his head. It's easy to add flowers to a brocade, but it's hard to send charcoal in the snow. But the favors that have been forged between the 2 sides, adding flowers to a brocade is far from comparable to sending charcoal in the snow. Silently, Meng Chaoran said, let's not talk about the Divine Wind sect first. The other side has the Yu family, the Blaze Sword sect, and possibly the Celeritas Sword sect. Most importantly, there's the Mount Shu Sword sect. One careless step and the 1,000-year foundation of my Beyond Sky Mountain will be destroyed. Wu Yunliang's expression was similarly calm. Riches are found in danger. My Beyond Sky Mountain has already reached the most dangerous juncture. What is there to be afraid of? Meng Chaoran nodded his head. Since that's the case, go ahead and do it, I will naturally lend you a hand. A gratified smile appeared on Wu Yunliang's face. Just as he was about to speak, the smile suddenly froze on his face. A huge pressure simultaneously floated onto the hearts of everyone present. This kind of feeling is not a normal kind of fear, but rather a kind of natural world where a rabbit meets a wolf, or meets a lion. That kind of instinctive trembling that comes from the depths of the soul. Everyone looked towards the same direction. There, silently stands a person, a young man. His face is thin and handsome, wearing a clean white robe. The aura on his body is light and gentle, without a trace of sharpness, like a gust of wind, like a spirit spring. But this person's pair of eyes are as bright as the stars in the night sky. His gaze seems to be able to see straight through a person's soul. The leader of the current generation disciples of Taishu Temple, the world walker of Taoism, Pang Jie. As soon as Pang Jie appeared, Kong Cheng, Zhang Hai and the others are fine, but on Xianmen Tianzong's side, no matter if it's the Yuanying stage Kong Nanhua and Miao Shihao, or the Golden Elixir period Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others, they all felt a great magical power pressing down on them at the same time, making the channeling of their mana become obscure. Pang Jie's cultivation is also at the Yuanying stage, he shouldn't have such a magical power. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran looked at each other and said in unison, it's a magical weapon. It's a magical weapon, only a magical weapon can bring this kind of pressure. Pang Jie has a magical weapon refined by a primordial spirit cultivator. Chapter 216. In the great heaven primordial world, only primordial spirit realm cultivators could refine magical treasures. Cultivators below the primordial spirit realm could only refine magical treasures. According to the cultivation of the refiner, magical treasures were divided into Yuanying realm, Golden Elixir realm, Foundation building realm, and Qi refining realm. From this, it could be seen that magical treasures and magical treasures were 2 completely different concepts. Magical treasures could generate their own artifact spirit, which was like an independent life with its own thoughts and memories. It could absorb the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth to cultivate and increase its strength. A magical treasure could even be more powerful than the primordial spirit ox that refined it. Chaotic yin and yang, reversing the flow of mountains and seas, and overturning the heavens and the earth. Pang Jia was the leader of the current generation's traveling disciples of the Taishu Temple. It was not surprising that he was bestowed with a magical treasure by the sect. As the #1 sacred land in the divine land of the human race, Taishu Temple's magical treasures must be extraordinary as well. Before the magical treasure appeared, its aura alone was enough to suppress Xianmen Tianzong and the others in the battle. Kong Cheng, true monarch hurricane, and the others were not affected at all. Just because Pang Jia stood there, the balance of the battle immediately tilted. Kong Cheng glanced at Pang Jia with dissatisfaction, but did not say anything. Zhang Hai, true monarch dark wind, Yu Qianshan, and Yu Wanfeng did not have any other thoughts. Instead, they increased their strength and followed up with their attacks on Xiao Yan and the others. Patriarch Flying Fire was watching them like a tiger watching its prey. Yang Tonghui and Patriarch Qing Hao stood opposite each other. Yang Tonghui remained silent, while Patriarch Qing Hao sighed. He felt a little regretful, but more than that, he felt a sense of relief and relief. Xianmen Tianzong's foundation is still shallow. The other cultivators might not know Pang Jia, but they could guess his identity from the vast and ethereal waves of magical power around him and the white auspicious clouds embroidered on his robe. So it's not just the Mount Shu Sword sect. Even the Taishu Temple is dissatisfied with Xianmen Tianzong. The Tempest Temple has already been destroyed. Only the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Taishu Temple are left out of the 3 great holy lands of the past. If these 2 great holy lands are dissatisfied with one force, then this force is destined to be destroyed. It seems that not only will Xianmen Tianzong fail to open the mountain gate this time, but it will also face the danger of being destroyed. It's just a pity that there are so many outstanding talents in the sect. So what if he's talented? They don't know when to advance or retreat. They are destined to be destroyed. Everyone discussed animatedly, and many people even had other thoughts. This might be a good opportunity to make friends with Taishu Temple and the Shushan Sword sect. If I can forge a good relationship with these 2 holy lands, then this trip to the Sand Continent will not be in vain. This time, only the Yuanying Patriarch of the Cloud Elephant sect, a medium-sized sect at the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, had personally come to the Sand Continent to observe the ceremony. At this moment, the Cloud Elephant Patriarch suddenly took a step forward and shouted loudly, Xianmen Tianzong is tyrannical and has incurred public anger. Today, with the 2 great holy lands, Taishu Temple and Mount Shu Sword sect, we, the Cloud Elephant sect, as the sect of Kunlun Mountain, are willing to follow them and get rid of this tumor together. As he said this, he punched out with both fists. Large amounts of white clouds appeared and turned into a white elephant the size of a mountain. With a long cry, it rushed towards Kong Nanhua, who was fighting with Kong Cheng, with a power that could collapse the pillars of the sky and overturn the seas. Seeing this, Meng Chaoran instantly frowned, a villain who hits a person when he is down. Wu Yunliang, who was beside him, had a solemn expression, even the Taishu Temple has made a move. This time, Xianmen Tianzong is really in trouble. Riches were sought in danger, and the reward was a huge one with a slim chance of survival. However, if it was a situation where there was no chance of survival, then it was not seeking riches, but dying in vain. Thinking of this, Wu Yunliang immediately sighed, but did not have the intention to make a move. Seeing the sudden reversal of the situation, Yu Wanfeng and True Monarch Hurricane could not help but laugh. Surnamed Lin, you will not be able to open your sect today. Whether you can run away with your tail between your legs is also a question now. Oh, is that so? Whether his disciples had the upper hand or were in a disadvantageous position, ever since Lin Feng appeared, he had been standing in the void silently and did not make any moves. At this moment, he suddenly laughed and looked towards the horizon. However, he was not looking at the sudden appearance of Pang Jia, but at the sky in the east. In the east, a red sun was rising. More than half of the sun had already emerged from the ground, emitting a brilliant golden light. The surrounding clouds were dyed a fiery red by the sunlight, but there was also a dazzling golden light. From the dark night to the dawn, from the first ray of light in the horizon to the rosy clouds and red clouds, it all happened in the blink of an eye. Before anyone could savor its magnificence, the red sun had leaped out of the ground. In the fierce battle, a night had passed. Lin Feng smiled leisurely and said calmly, "The 8th of May has arrived. Welcome to my Yujing Mountain, my fellow Taoists, to participate in the first opening ceremony of my Xianmen Tianzong." After he said this, the others were still in a daze. Only Pang Jie, who was far away in the sky, suddenly changed his expression. In the void above everyone's head, the air suddenly fluctuated violently like boiling water. Purple mist suddenly emerged in the sky like a tide and spread in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the whole sky was dyed purple. Everyone stared in shock at the sea of purple clouds that covered hundreds of thousands of acres. In the center of the sea of purple clouds, a white jade-like mountain was faintly discernible. The extremely terrifying energy fluctuations were as vast as the heavens and the earth, as vigorous as the 4 seas and 8 wastelands. In the purple mist, treasured trees, pavilions, sweet rain, rivers of stars, halberds, treasured swords, screens. Endless light and shadows rose and fell one after another, creating a magnificent scene. Many images rose and fell in the purple mist, faintly discernible along with the white jade immortal mountain. On the white jade immortal mountain, there were flowing springs, waterfalls, orchids, and beautiful trees. It was like a dream. Above the 9 heavens, endless astral winds and rolling thunder clouds all prostrated at the foot of the white jade immortal mountain, becoming its stairs and guards. Together, they surrounded and protected this immortal mountain that seemed to be the ruler of the 9 heavens. Before everyone could recover from their shock, the majestic white jade immortal mountain came crashing down from the mist, crashing into the ground. And below it were 4 people, Xiao Yan, Tiny Tot, True Lord Hurricane, and Yuan Feng. Xiao Yan and the little guy had long since received Lin Feng's instructions. Chuckling, their bodies flashed and they left the area enveloped by Jade Capital Mountain. When True Lord Hurricane and Yuan Feng wanted to dodge, they realized that they couldn't move at all. Not to mention traveling through space, even their dermic powers as Yuanying cultivators were sealed and couldn't be used at all. It was as if their entire bodies were paralyzed, and they couldn't even move their pinky fingers. No. As True Lord Hurricane and Yuan Feng roared in despair, they could only watch as the Yujing Mountain fell from above and crushed them into powder. Neither the 9 heavens formless astral wind or the Xianming true water could protect them. The Yuanying patriarch didn't even have the chance to self-destruct his Yuanying body before he was crushed to death. His body was crushed into a meat patty, and his soul was crushed into ashes. Yuanying doesn't need you to self-destruct. The Yujing Mountain will crush you directly. This is too terrifying. Xianmen Tianzong's cave abode can actually move through space and go wherever it wants. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them and stared at the Yujing Mountain in a daze. On the top of the mountain, Lin Feng's true body was wearing a purple robe and standing calmly with his hands behind his back on the crown of a treasure tree that was so huge that it covered the sky and the sun. There seemed to be chaos in his eyes. The next moment, the chaos was destroyed and turned into the chaotic earth, water, fire, and wind. It was as if countless eras had passed, but it also seemed like it only took a short moment before the earth, water, fire, and wind stabilized and turned into a vast new world. No one else could see it. Only Lin Feng could see a light shadow in a purple robe that looked like a baby when he was born. The baby's facial features were exactly the same as when Lin Feng was born. The baby opened his eyes abruptly. There was not a trace of impurity in his pitch-black eyes. They were extremely pure and filled with a primitive and pure artistic conception. The conception of the creation of heaven and earth and the creation of all things from nothing. The Yuanying realm is indeed mysterious. Lin Feng smiled slightly. The moment Pang Jia appeared, his true body on Yujing Mountain had successfully passed the lightning tribulation and formed a nascent soul. The moment Lin Feng formed the Yuanying realm, his connection with the mystic heaven treasure tree, white jade capital mountain, and cyclic purple qi reached a new level. After forming the Yuanying realm, Lin Feng comprehended more of the mysteries of space. Now that he was cooperating with the mystic heaven treasure tree, he could enter and exit the void at will on Yujing Mountain. From then on, he could come and go as he pleased in the myriad worlds. Lin Feng looked at the dazed crowd at the foot of the mountain and said lightly, "I welcome all fellow Taoists who come to observe the ceremony. As for the uninvited guests, they can stay." As he spoke, Lin Feng raised his hand and closed his fingers, grabbing at Kong Chang and the rest who were fighting with Zhu Yi, Kong Nanhua, and Miao Shihao. Yu Qianshan's goatee stood on end as he glared at Lin Feng fiercely. "Lin Feng, you killed my sixth brother. My Yu family will not let this go." There were many living beings in the heaven primordial world, but those who could form the primordial spirit and become carefree were few and far between. Even in the Taishu Temple and the Mount Shu Sword sect, the primordial spirit cultivators mostly cultivated in seclusion or roamed the Sea of Stars. They did not show themselves easily. The golden elixir cultivators were the pillars of the sect, while the Yuanying cultivators were the upper echelons of the sect. They were the leaders of the sect and the existences that determined the strength of the sect. In the Wind God sect and the Yu family, losing a Yuanying cultivator was like breaking an arm. This kind of deep hatred was enough to cause the entire Yu family to riot. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. "Of course your Yu family won't let this go, because they didn't just lose one Yuanying cultivator today, but two." Yu Qianshan's expression suddenly changed. He heard Lin Feng continue, "And this is just the beginning." As Lin Feng spoke, he suddenly opened his 5 fingers. A loud sound startled the void and shook the universe. The entire void in front of Lin Feng suddenly collapsed, turning into endless elements of water, fire, and wind that surged forward in an instant. Yu Qianshan let out a strange cry. A huge amount of Xianming true water turned into a barrier in an attempt to block it. The dark blue, ice-like Xianming true water continuously compressed and condensed. In the end, it formed an ice shield that was almost pure black. An ancient and desolate aura leaked out from it, as if it had existed for countless years and was immortal and indestructible. Xianming Shield. The strongest defensive spiritual art of the Yu family's Xianming formula. However, it was useless. In just an instant, Yu Qianshan and his Xianming shield were engulfed by this world-shattering torrent. His entire person disappeared in the void, without a trace. Chapter 217. In the eastern sky, the sun rose from the east, but on the wasteland, at this moment, it fell into a deathly silence. Occasionally there would be a strange sound, that was the sound of someone involuntarily swallowing saliva. Everyone was shocked by what had just happened. Yu Qianshan, a great cultivator whose cultivation was even higher than Wan Feng, a middle-stage Yuanying old monster, was killed by Lin Feng in one move. A real instant kill, there was no room to fight back, not even a chance to escape. The middle-stage Yuanying old ancestor was instantly turned into ashes, not even his bones were left. If before, when Lin Feng used Yujing Mountain to smash True Monarch Hurricane and Yuan Feng to death, people could still suspect that it was because Yujing Mountain was powerful, but now that he killed Yu Qianshan with a flick of his fingers, it made everyone present tremble in fear. Yang Tonghui's eyes lit up. To kill middle-stage Yuanying so easily, only a great cultivator who has achieved primordial spirit can do that. I always felt that he was mysterious before, and I was right. Old ancestor Qing Wei had a bitter smile on his face, knowing that the nature of the matter had completely changed. With Lin Feng backing up Xiao Yan, the development of the matter was no longer under the control of their Celeritas sword sect. Even their Celeritas sword sect only had one primordial spirit sword venerable. Being hesitant indeed will be punished. Wu Yunliang's smile was even more bitter than old ancestor Qing Wei's. Old ancestor Soaring Flame's eyes kept rolling. Even though I exchanged one move with his protector, it was only one move. Honestly speaking, I was the one who suffered a small loss. In this way, he shouldn't come looking for trouble with me, right? That old ancestor Yunxiang wanted to slap himself even more. Why was he so despicable? Even if the others had thoughts in their hearts, they didn't really stand out, but it was him who not only stood out, but also personally launched the attack. He couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. Thinking that Yu Qianshan, whose cultivation was higher than his, was also killed by Lin Feng in one move, old ancestor Yunxiang felt a chill in his heart. Without saying a word, he turned around and ran like a frightened rabbit. Lin Feng did not forget about him. His divine god of battle clone let out a roar into the sky. It's too late to leave now. The doppelganger of the divine god of war originated from the system. Unlike ordinary doppelgangers, there was no need to refine it again. It was completely in sync with the cultivation of Lin Feng's main body. After Lin Feng's main body advanced to the Yuanying stage, the doppelganger of the divine god of war also advanced to the Yuanying stage. Moreover, it was the physical limit of a Yuanying stage cultivator. Primordial Fei, the demon king with the strongest body of the demon race, was only SOSO. The divine god of battle's clone's body shuddered as he let out a roar and threw a punch forward. The shockwave was so powerful that it felt like mountains were moving and the heavens were collapsing and the earth was cracking. The shockwave was so powerful that it felt like it was solid as it swept up a sandstorm in the desert. With his body as the center, the air within a radius of 100 feet was completely shattered. Half of progenitor Yunxiang's body had entered the rift, yet he was knocked out by the punch from the clone of the divine god of battle. You've gone too far. Progenitor Yunxiang let out a furious roar. His ferocious nature was triggered as he slammed his fists together, summoning a white elephant the size of a mountain to charge at the clone of the divine god of battle. The clone of the divine god of battle stood proudly in the sky. He did not move at all. He simply raised his right fist and threw a punch forward. 8 trigram sky collapsing hammer, chaos hammer. The blood of the clone of the divine god of battle surged wildly. The scorching yang qi was even more dazzling than the sun. The punch shattered everything in its path, turning the space where progenitor Yunxiang and the white elephant were standing into chaos. The white elephant did not even have the chance to let out a cry before it was shattered into pieces. Meanwhile, progenitor Yunxiang's flesh was destroyed by Lin Feng's clone of the divine god of battle with a single punch. His Yuanying wanted to escape, but was grabbed by the giant hand of the clone of the divine god of battle. With a single squeeze, the entire Yuanying seemed like it was about to shatter. He was on the verge of death and did not even have the strength to self-destruct. Zhang Hai, who was fighting with Zhu Yi earlier, trembled when he saw this scene. Such ferocity, only the emperor and the marquis can compete with him. Where did young Master Yi find such a ferocious person to be his master? I'm no match for him, leave quickly, leave quickly. Thinking to this point, the manager of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji immediately abandoned Zhu Yi. With a wave of his brush, he wrote the word escape and his entire body flashed into the rift. The speed of his escape technique far surpassed that of a normal Yuanying cultivator. Run? Don't even think about running. Lin Feng's right palm was like a blade, slashing downwards in the air. The powerful force of the heavenly barrier immediately sealed the rift that Zhang Hai had just created with the word escape. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Hai's body was stuck at the intersection of two spaces. Half of his body was left in the real world, while the other half of his body was in the spatial turbulence. Between the two spatial boundaries, the spatial rift caused an enormous twisting force. Even if Zhang Hai was a Yuanying cultivator, at this moment he was like a rag, his body twisted into a ball, blood spurting out madly. Zhang Hai's body was thrown out from the spatial rift. His face was full of anger, completely giving up on the thought of escaping. He suddenly raised his brush and wrote a large, human, character in the air. Zhang Haiman chanted, "The sharpest thing in this world is not a sword, but the tip of a brush. The most powerful force is not Buddha, but the human heart." Yuanying Realm Magic Item, Spring and Autumn Brush. The strongest character of the Talisman Amulet, the human character. The human character written in the air was overwhelming, as if it was splitting the entire world into 3 parts. The powerful force wanted to dismember the world. Ridiculous. Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. The so-called human heart is the heart of everyone in the world. It is not something that can be represented by a single person's words, nor can it be written by a single brush. You don't even understand this, and you still have the right to talk about the human heart? Lin Feng stretched out a finger and the human formula that split heaven and earth instantly vanished into nothingness. Under Zhang Hai's furious gaze, the surging purple gas formed an independent small world, directly trapping him inside. Zhang Hai was like a bird in a cage, constantly bumping around, writing one character after another, but it did not have the slightest effect. Instead, the small world formed by the purple gas continued to shrink and collapse, obviously simulating the extinction of the world. This nirvana directly turned Zhang Hai into dust. Zhang Hai looked at this scene in horror, but all he could do was close his eyes and wait for death. All his struggles were futile. Kong Chang's eyes were bloodshot, staring at Lin Feng in the sky, his expression becoming calmer and calmer. He let out a long roar, as if to dispel all his fear and hesitation. "I, a sword cultivator, have nothing else but the sword. I would rather break than bend my life forward. Master of the Mystic Gate, take my strongest sword." Kong Chang's clothes all turned into dust, flashing a dazzling cold light. His entire body turned into a resplendent sword light, even more dazzling and intense than when he attacked Kong Nanhua. The sword chi that had been accumulated for 1,000 years was released overnight, and the first to be destroyed was Kong Chang's body. Within the sword light, a 5 or 6-year-old boy walked with a sword. It was Kong Chang's sword Nascent Soul. Facing Kong Chang's killing move, Lin Feng did not take it seriously at all. He activated the heavenly barrier, and an invisible barrier blocked the path of Kong Chang's sword light. Kong Chang's sword light was like a tide crashing into a reef. No matter how fierce and violent the tide was, it could do nothing to the reef. Instead, it would only smash itself into pieces. The resplendent sword light seemed to have crashed into an invisible wall, turning into countless streams of light that sputtered in all directions in the opposite direction, but could not take a step forward. Suppress. With a wave of Lin Feng's hand, the invisible barrier suddenly took form, turning into endless purple gas. It wrapped around the shattered sword light and Kong Chang's sword Nascent Soul, turning it into another heavenly small world and sealing it. A white light suddenly flew over from the distant sky, piercing through the surging purple gas and landing on Lin Feng. The person who attacked was Pang Jie. Pang Jie had a solemn expression at this moment, standing in the void with his hands behind his back. On his forehead, there was a round spot of light, like a small round mirror. This round mirror shone brightly, like the sun shining on all things. Taishu Temple's Dharma spell, Taishu Treasure Mirror Technique. This treasure mirror exuded a powerful intent, as if an eye had appeared in the center of the blue sky. This eye had no sorrow, joy, anger, or resentment. There was not a single trace of emotion in it. It only looked at everything in the sky with dignity. There was a kind of tranquility in the eye, as if it was watching the vicissitudes of the world, but it also had the majesty of controlling everything. It was as if the owner of the eye could destroy everything in his line of sight if he wanted to. Even Lin Feng felt that when this mirror light shone on him, the circulation of his magic power became sluggish, as if he was being watched by the heavenly eye, shocking and restricting him, not daring to act rashly. Good, Taishu Temple is indeed extraordinary. Lin Feng smiled. Unfortunately, it's still far from it. With a wave of his hand, the power of the heavenly small world barrier was activated again, isolating the mirror light that Pang Jie shone on him. Then, with a point of his finger, he used the two realms void technique. The location of the technique was the space where Pang Jia was. The boundary of the replaced space was on the central axis of Pang Jia's body. The technique was activated, splitting Pang Jia in half from head to toe. Pang Jia immediately felt the change in the space around him. He wanted to use his nascent soul cultivator's magic power to stabilize the space around him. However, he found that it was useless. The space around him was still being torn apart, and it looked like he was about to be torn in half. After Lin Feng formed the Yuanying stage, his understanding of the mystery of space had almost reached perfection. His two realms void technique could not be resisted even by an opponent of the same Yuanying stage cultivation. He was invincible under the primordial spirit realm. Good. Pang Jia's expression finally changed. His body moved, and a shadow flashed above his head, and a shadow flew out. This shadow was hundreds of feet tall, wearing a magical robe embroidered with the sun, moon, stars, mountains, and oceans. It was stepping on a large white cloud. However, the face of this shadow was indeed blank, without any facial features. However, it was this completely featureless shadow that exuded an incomparably majestic aura. It was as if he was the truth of this world, the ruler of this world, the maker of all rules, and the representative of the vast Tao of heaven and earth. The universal Dharma form, the signature symbol of a late Yuanying stage cultivator. With this great power alone, Pang Jia could single-handedly wipe out everyone present. There was only one exception. Universal Dharma form. Lin Feng immediately saw the clues. The current Taoist Empyrean walker, late Yuanying stage, and the cultivation of the embodiment of heaven and earth. Not bad. But in front of me, it's useless. Lin Feng stretched out his right hand, spread his fingers, and then clenched his fist. As soon as Pang Jia's universal Dharma form appeared, it pierced through the sky, and the weather changed. However, as Lin Feng clenched his fist, the void where Pang Jia was instantly shattered. Endless water, fire, and wind surged, as if the universe was in chaos before the creation of heaven and earth. Pang Jia's hundreds of feet tall universal Dharma form, which suppressed everyone present, only made a small wave in the four symbols torrent of the universe, and then there was no more movement. The most powerful power of a late Yuanying stage cultivator, the universal Dharma form, collapsed immediately. Chapter 218. The realm of the heavenly laws embodiment of earth was to condense the heaven and earth embodiment of heaven and earth. This was the unique symbol of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. When the time was right, one would have to further condense and enhance the heaven and earth embodiment of heaven and earth, combining it with one's own Yuanying body and finally achieving the primordial spirit Great Tao. The heaven and earth embodiment represented the combination of the cultivator's supernatural powers and the essence of dharmic powers. It was extremely powerful. Below the primordial spirit Great Tao, the difference in strength between late-stage Yuanying and mid-stage Yuanying was the greatest. The reason for this was the existence of the heaven and earth embodiment. Pang Jia's heaven and earth embodiment contained a mysterious and powerful concept of power. The vast and boundless sky shrouded everything in the world like a canopy. It was high and vast, exuding the supreme majesty of the world. All living beings reproduced and lived under the sky. It was as if it represented the ruthlessness of the heavenly Tao, the supreme majesty that dominated the fate of all living beings in the world. Everyone and anything could only lower their heads obediently in front of the heavens, and let the heavens deal with them. The current world wayfarer of Taoism, Pang Jia, who cultivated the supreme great Tao of Taishu Temple, had the heaven and earth embodiment of heaven and earth embodiment that was considered outstanding among the late-stage Yuanying cultivators. However, at this moment, when faced with Lin Feng's attack that shattered the chaos and manifested the earth, water, fire, and wind, even the powerful heaven and earth embodiment of Pang Jia could not withstand it and collapsed immediately. Pang Jia's expression was solemn as he let out a long sigh. It was as if he had come from an endless space and time. Suddenly, his body turned illusory as if he was an illusion. It was this change in reality and illusion that allowed Peng Jia to escape. At the moment when the torrent of earth, water, fire, and wind was about to hit him, Peng Jia's body turned illusory and escaped into another dimension, leaving behind only an illusion. At the next moment, the earth, water, fire, and wind calmed down once again. Peng Jia's body then turned illusory and returned to his original position. Taishu Temple's secret supreme divine ability technique, infinite transformation. It comprehended the great Tao of true and false, and with a single thought, it could conceal one's body within another dimension of space. Relying on the miraculous infinite transformation, Peng Jia managed to dodge Lin Feng's attack by a hair's breadth. Without hesitation, he retracted his universal avatar. The truth was right before their eyes. Peng Jia's Dharma form of heaven and earth, which was powerful enough to run amok in the Yuanying realm, was completely useless against Lin Feng. It was like tofu dregs. Peng Jia's expression was cold and calm. He flipped his palms and said silently, "Treasure, please show yourself." Black, white, yellow, green, red, and blue lights flashed on his palms, and an extremely frightening wave of magic power immediately filled the entire area. A magic treasure. Only a magical treasure could have such a terrifying power. It was almost equivalent to the power of a great nascent divinity cultivator. Xiaoyan's Mirror of Heaven and Earth, Zhu Yi's Desolation Prime 9 Refinements of Thunder Net, and Tiny Tot's Bronze Void Cauldron were all emitting low hums, restless and uneasy. These nascent soul stage magic treasures all revealed a very human-like emotion. It was the natural reverence one would feel when a person of lower status met a person of higher status. It was like a subject facing his own monarch. If the monarch wanted the subject to die, the subject had no choice but to die. The light gradually dimmed, but the pressure of the aura became stronger and stronger. Within the six-colored light, a small sword that was only 1 foot long revealed itself. Taishu Temple's magic treasure, hexagonal sword. A human voice suddenly came from the hexagonal sword, asking Lin Feng, "You can actually shatter the heaven and earth and reenact the 4 elements. How rare. Who are you?" Lin Feng looked at the hexagonal sword with interest. After all, it was the first magic treasure he saw after coming to this world. However, when he heard the old man's question, Lin Feng smiled faintly and was too lazy to respond. He flicked his finger, and a light spot flew into the air. The light spot expanded rapidly, and countless rays of light intertwined in the sky in a strange trajectory and pattern, forming an incomparably huge magic formation. Within the magic formation, countless unresolved runes and diagrams rose and fell one after another. They combined together and gradually formed a huge pattern with black and white poles, covering hundreds of miles of the wasteland. Peng Jia and the hexagonal sword both landed within the range of the magic formation. Peng Jia said in a deep voice, "This is this person's Mountain Gate Great Formation." An old voice came from the hexagonal sword, "It's just a form. It can't trap me." With a buzzing sound, the hexagonal sword's overall form suddenly changed. Originally, it was shining with 6 colors, but now, only green was left. In the center of the green light, the hexagonal sword's figure disappeared. However, a dragon's roar sounded, and a huge ship that was hundreds of feet long and had 3 floors on top and bottom sailed out from the green light. The huge ship's violent power directly crushed all the chi of heaven and earth in the vicinity, and the entire void seemed to be empty. The whole ship was filled with a powerful force that could cross the sea of stars and reach the other side, and no difficulties or obstacles could stop it. The first form of the hexagonal sword, the dragon-flying ship. Peng Jia landed on the dragon-flying ship, and the ship immediately turned into a ray of green light that pierced through the heavens and earth. It was about to rush out from the magic formation in front of it. Seeing this, Lin Feng nodded slightly. A magic treasure refined by a primordial soul stage mighty figure is indeed extraordinary. However, it was useless. Lin Feng's right hand formed a seal, and in his heart, he said, Yin and Yang life and death formation, activate. The 6 paths of life and death, the change of heaven and earth, activate. Endless cyclic purple chi surged into the magic formation, and turned into a vast sky, shrouding the top of Pang Jia and the dragon flying ship. The dragon flying ship's flying speed was 1,000 miles in a breath, and in the blink of an eye, it passed through countless time and space. However, no matter how fast it flew, it was still limited to this sky, and could not fly out. This magic formation has some tricks up its sleeves. A slightly surprised voice came from the dragon flying ship, and in the midst of the light, its shape changed again, and the green light turned completely white. In the center of the white light, the huge ship that was hundreds of feet long suddenly shrank, and in the end, it turned into a 3-foot-long sword. The second form of the hexagonal sword, the Justice Sword. The Supreme Justice Sword, the ruler of the heavens. Pang Jia reached out and grabbed the Justice Sword, and in the middle of the Yin and Yang life and death formation, he slashed at the sky formed by the cyclic purple chi. In an instant, a white, bright, and majestic sword light slashed at the sky above his head, as if the sky was a piece of cloth, and his sword was going to cut a big hole in the cloth. Wherever the sword light passed, the spiritual chi of the heaven and earth was all destroyed, and a black line-like mark was left in the void. That was the entire space being destroyed by the Justice Sword. Good, the power of this sword of yours is comparable to the time when I destroyed the Yuanying instrument, the supreme formation-breaking drum. The change of the sky really has the power to cut the heavens, Lin Feng smiled. If it was just the change of heaven and earth with the cyclic purple chi, I'm afraid it would have been broken by you. But now, this is the real power of the change of heaven and earth. Endless dim yellow light suddenly lit up in the Yin and Yang life and death formation, and the divine light of earth in the center, which was opposite to the cyclic purple chi, turned into a thick and heavy land in the formation. The land and the sky above were connected, and the heaven and earth merged, becoming one. The vast and boundless sky was vast and ethereal, and could contain infinity. The deep and heavy land silently bore the weight of everything in the world. It was a complete world. The sky was above, and the thick land was below. It was extremely balanced, harmonious, and natural. The majestic sword light of the Justice Sword fell on this piece of heaven and earth like a gust of wind. No matter how violent the wind was, it could only destroy the things that existed in the world, and could not affect the heaven and earth itself. Instead, with Lin Feng's method, the heaven and earth suddenly turned upside down, and a huge twisting force that could turn the heaven and earth upside down twisted Pang Jia and the Justice Sword into a ball. What a fierce formation! Even if the real supreme formation-breaking drum is here, I'm afraid it won't be able to break this formation by itself, the Justice Sword said anxiously. Change. In the depths of the white light, a ball of blue light suddenly lit up, and the Justice Sword's form changed once again, revealing the third form of the hexagonal sword. A blue shield appeared beside Pang Jia, and as the blue light flashed, it expanded into a sphere, protecting Pang Jia. The third form of the hexagonal sword, the unmovable void shield. Even if the heaven and earth outside collapse, I will stay in the void, immortal, indestructible, and indestructible. The 6 shape swords transformed into the shape of the void shield, which immediately displayed a strong defensive power. It forcibly withstood the powerful attack launched by the heaven and earth change of the Yin and Yang life and death formation. However, in doing so, he was also trapped in the Yin and Yang life and death formation and could not escape. The onlookers on the wasteland outside the formation stared at the giant formation above their heads. Even though they had been shocked by Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong to the point of numbness, they were still shocked at this moment. That was a magic treasure. Although it was not defeated, it was trapped in the formation and could not move. Ancestor Qing Wei and Ancestor Flying Fire who stood on the opposite side, Yang Tonghui of the Heaven-Reaching Sword sect who stood on the side of Lin Feng, or Wu Yunliang and others who originally belonged to the neutral side, all fell into silence at this moment. The group that originally covered the sky, like the clouds of the end of the world, and came for Xianmen Tianzong, had collapsed in the blink of an eye. Yu Wanfeng, the sixth granduncle of the Yu family, had died. Yu Qianshan, the fifth granduncle of the Yu family, had died. Yuanying, true monarch of the Wind God sect, had died. Ancestor Yunxiang's body had been blown apart. Yuanying had been captured. Zhang Hai, the head steward of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji, had been captured alive. Kong Chang, the head disciple of the Li Meng branch of the Shushan sword sect, had his body destroyed and his sword infant captured alive. In the blink of an eye, other than Pang Jia, the Taoist world wanderer who carried the magic treasure hexagonal sword and had cultivated the aspect of heaven and earth, no one else was a match for Lin Feng. Even the strongest Pang Jia, at this moment, together with the magic treasure hexagonal sword, was also trapped in the formation and could not get out. Lin Feng himself still looked calm. He did not look at Pang Jia and the hexagonal sword. Instead, he turned his attention back to Zhang Hai and Kong Chang, who had been sealed in the small worlds of the heavens. The small worlds of the heavens continued to collapse, and it seemed that they were about to be destroyed. Zhang Hai's struggle was futile, and his eyes were filled with despair. Lin Feng stood there silently, expressionless. He thought to himself, if you don't show yourself, he's dead meat. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out, Master of the Mystic Gate, please have mercy. The voice was sharp, but the waves of magic power contained in it broke through the void. An old man dressed in a crimson robe appeared in front of the crowd. He was an old eunuch. However, the strong waves of magic power revealed his identity as a Yuanying cultivator. It's the great Zhou dynasty's chief eunuch of the ceremonial department, eunuch Mei Wulang. Someone immediately recognized the identity of the person who came. The great Zhou dynasty's chief eunuch, Emperor Zhou Yangpan's trusted aide, Mei Wulang. Some people immediately became excited. Could it be that the great Zhou dynasty is going to start an all-out war with Xianmen Tianzong? Zhang Hai could only represent the Marquis of Xuanji, Zhu Hongguo, while Mei Wulang was Emperor Zhou Yangpan's trusted aide. Lin Feng's expression was calm. Silently, he looked at Mei Wulang in front of him. Chapter 219. Eunuch Mei is also here. Is the great Zhou Empire going to start an all-out war with Xianmen Tianzong? The spectators discussed amongst themselves. Lin Feng's expression was calm as he calmly looked at Mei Wulang. Mei Wulang stopped not far from Lin Feng. He suddenly bowed respectfully towards Lin Feng. Old servant Mei Wulang is here on His Majesty's orders to deliver a congratulatory gift to the master of the Xian Gate. This is just a small gift. I hope the master of the Xian Gate will kindly accept it. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this. They stared closely at Mei Wulang, wanting to see if he was being sarcastic. But the more they looked, the more they felt something was wrong. Mei Wulang's expression was humble and his smile was warm. In the present world, perhaps only a primordial spirit cultivator could make him so respectful. More importantly, Mei Wulang was alone. Even though he was a late-stage Yuanying cultivator, Pang Jie's misfortune had already proved that late-stage Yuanying cultivators were not a match for Lin Feng. If he wanted to make things difficult for Lin Feng, he definitely wouldn't be like this. Some people subconsciously looked around. The famous Shenwu army of the Great Zhou Empire was nowhere to be seen. Mei Wulang completely ignored everyone's shocked gazes. He smiled and said, Mr. Zhang's matter is purely a misunderstanding. He misunderstood Marquis Xuanji's intentions and disturbed your sect's opening ceremony. His Majesty specially ordered me to come here to apologize to the master of the Xian Gate. He clapped his hands lightly and the space behind him split open. A group of people holding gift boxes slowly walked out on bright yellow clouds. The highest cultivation level of these people was only at the foundation establishment stage. Using them to deliver gifts clearly meant that they didn't have any enmity. One gift box after another was opened. One could see that even the boxes containing the gifts were high-quality magic items. Although each box was only half a meter long, they actually had a built-in space that could hold many things. The Great Zhou Empire's palace manager, Mei Wulang, personally announced the names. 1,000 kilograms of converged flint, 1,000 kilograms of purple swallow stone, 1,000 kilograms of turquoise stone, 1,000 kilograms of stalactite crystal. The others were truly shocked. The congratulatory gift sent by the Great Zhou dynasty was not fooling around at all. It was a serious and precious cultivation mineral. Convergent flint, purple brilliant stone, turquoise marrow, condensed stalactite crystals, and other things were all extremely precious cultivation materials. Moreover, each of them weighed over 1,000 kilograms. With the status and wealth of the Great Zhou dynasty, these 1,000 pounds of materials were definitely not raw ores, but refined essence materials. The scorching flint was one of the best fire elemental materials for refining magic tools. One had to find volcanic lava that had erupted, cool it down, and then refine it from it. Even thousands of kilograms of volcanic ash might not be able to refine half a kilogram of scorching flint. The purple scarlet brilliant stone had to be specially selected from rocks that had been struck by the heavenly lightning of nature, and then refined from them. It was impossible to reach the standard by artificially casting lightning spells, so its preciousness could be imagined. The turquoise marrow had to be a 10,000-year-old tree that had been buried deep in the ground and turned into a fossil. However, it had to be excavated before it turned into coal, and the marrow-shaped liquid contained within could be extracted. There was no need to say much about the condensed stalactite crystal. After thousands of years in a cave, the stalactite would drip water rich with spirit chi. After collecting large amounts of spirit chi, 1,000 kilograms of spirit water would condense into a crystal the size of a human finger. Any one of these materials weighed half a kilogram, and the market price would be around 10 vermilion talismans. But now, the Great Zhou dynasty was offering 1,000 kilograms. And Mei Wulang's announcement had only just begun. 100 ice illusion divine stones, 10 primordial essence crystals, 5 buckets of emerald sand, 5 kilograms of darklight enigmatic iron. Everyone was speechless. Quite a few of them stared at the attendant holding the gift box behind Mei Wulang. Their eyes were bloodshot. If it wasn't for the fact that this item was a transaction between the Great Zhou dynasty and Xianmen Tianzong, they would definitely take the risk and rush up to snatch it. In fact, if it wasn't for the overwhelming strength that Lin Feng had displayed earlier, they would definitely have tried to snatch it as well. These items were just too precious. 100, 10, 5 buckets, 5 kilograms. It didn't sound like it could compare to the 1,000 kilograms of gifts from before. The number was so small that it was almost negligible. But those who truly understood the value of these treasures knew that any one of the last 4 items would be worth more than all of the previous ones. Ice Illusion Divine Stone was a peak ice attribute refining material. It was condensed from 10,000-year profound ice and had the concept of space fused into it. Just a single one was enough to cause others to fight over it, let alone 100 of them. Primordial Essence Crystal was one of the miraculous items formed when the heavens and the earth were created. It contained the purest spirit chi of the world and the true meaning of creation. Emerald Sand and Darklight Enigmatic Iron were the 6 great miraculous metals of the world. They were both the best materials for refining flying swords. If 1 or even a few grams of it were added to a flying sword, the sword's strength would increase by a level, and it would have special uses that were different from ordinary swords. Seeing these items, not to mention the cultivators of the small sects, even Yang Tonghui, Ancestor Flying Fire, and Ancestor Qing Wei were slightly envious. The 3 of them looked at each other and were speechless. They thought at the same time, the Great Zhou dynasty is going to put in a lot of money this time. The Great Zhou dynasty was indeed putting in a lot of money. After a large number of precious cultivation materials, there were 20 sets of purple micro-fairy robes. They were magic tools of the Golden Elixir period. They were refined with precious materials and the power of the purple micro-star of the 3 enclosures of the starry sky. Their defensive power against spells was second to none. The items that Liang Pan gave were all sets. There was the purple micro-fairy robe for magic clothing, the Fengyi sacrificial sword for magic swords, the Rui jadeite and the coiled dragon jade belt, which looked like accessories but were also powerful golden elixir period magic tools. There were 20 of each. Even though the great Zhou dynasty was rich, taking out so many items at once would hurt their vitality. After the gifts were all announced, Mei Wulang took out a white jade scroll from his sleeve and said to Lin Feng respectfully, "His Majesty knows that Mr. Zhang De and the Xianmen sect's leader are at odds. He is deeply worried and ordered me to give you this jade scroll as an apology." The jade scroll opened and emitted a dazzling white light. In the center of the white light was a shining crown. 2 shadows were projected from the crown. One of the shadows was dignified and sacred, while the other was evil and domineering. The 2 shadows merged together and produced a violent energy wave, as if it could tear the void at any time. The Yuanying magic tool, the ghost god golden crown. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran looked at each other and sighed at the same time. Meng Chaoran said, "If it's to buy Zhang Hai's life, these things are clearly too expensive." 1 life. It's more than enough to buy 10 lives. Wu Yunliang slowly nodded his head. The great Zhou dynasty wants to form an alliance with Xianmen Tianzong. Meng Chaoran frowned, but the Xianmen sect's leader and the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu don't seem to get along. A rift will eventually appear between them. Liang Pan can't let his trusted subordinates' hearts turn cold because of an outsider. But before the rift breaks, both sides will have common interests. Wu Yunliang's eyes flashed, saying in a low voice, "Befriend distant enemies and attack close ones, the simplest and plainest principle is often the most correct." Befriend distant enemies and attack close ones. Meng Chaoran chewed on these words and immediately understood. Even though Yujing Mountain can travel through space, the power structure of the Divine Land has already stabilized. Only Kunlun Mountain is relatively empty. Lin Feng's foundation is in Kunlun Mountain. Between him and the great Zhou dynasty is the Qin dynasty and Mount Shu sword sect. Even if the 2 sides have conflicts, they can still coexist peacefully for a short period of time. On the contrary, they can attack the other powers between the 2 together. In a situation where Lin Feng is at odds with the Yu family and Mount Shu sword sect at the same time, this makes the great Zhou dynasty even more assured in roping him in. Of course, the prerequisite is that Lin Feng has to display his strength and have the value to be roped in. Meng Chaoran suddenly raised his head and looked towards Wu Yunliang. "The great Zhou dynasty has intentions of making a move against the great Qin dynasty?" Wu Yunliang nodded his head, his eyes shining brightly. "This is precisely our Beyond Heaven Mountain's chance." Meng Chaoran suddenly said, "However, just the strength that Xianmen Tianzong has displayed right now is only on par with the Celeritas sword sect and the Blaze sword sect. It doesn't seem to be enough for the great Zhou dynasty to invest so much capital." Wu Yunliang said, "Maybe there are other reasons, we'll wait and see." His heart felt a bit cold because Wu Yunliang suddenly thought of before, when Zhang Hai was just about to make a move against Zhu Yi, Lin Feng said something that seemed to make people scratch their heads. In the end, the great Zhou dynasty is still Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou who calls the shots. At the time he was baffled, but connecting it to the scene in front of him, Wu Yunliang said, "Could it be that the master of the Xian Gate already predicted that this would happen?" Lin Feng calmly looked at Mei Wulang and the attendants behind him, smiling faintly saying, "I welcome every friendly fellow cultivator." He pointed with a finger and the little world that trapped Zhang Hai once again turned into clouds of purple gas, releasing Zhang Hai who was originally close to despair. Zhang Hai stared at Lin Feng with a dazed expression for a while, then looked at Mei Wulang. After a long time he sighed, but didn't say anything. Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou's actions with such great fanfare, the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu must have agreed. Even if he didn't agree, he must have tacitly agreed. The reason why he didn't inform Zhang Hai is probably because he didn't give up, wanting to test Lin Feng's true strength. Looking at it now, Zhang Hai has successfully played the role of a touchstone. From a certain perspective, this trip was not made in vain. Only, completing his mission like this made Zhang Hai laugh bitterly in his heart, not saying anything. Lin Feng released Zhang Hai, but it's not over. He directly released the Mount Shu sword cultivator Kong Cheng, who was also sealed in his little world. This time, everyone present was shocked. Even Mei Wulang inwardly furrowed his brows. Lin Feng dared to beat Kong Cheng to this state, that means he clearly isn't afraid of the Mount Shu sword sect's revenge. But why did he release Kong Cheng now? Kong Cheng himself was also shocked and suspicious. Just what? But Lin Feng didn't wait for him to finish, directly using a cloud of purple gas to wrap around his sword nascent soul, sending it before Yang Tonghui. Then he said faintly, "Today is the day I open my mountain and accept a disciple. I've already seen enough blood. This Kong true monarch, I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Yang to send him back to Mount Shu." Yang Tonghui stared blankly, his expression instantly becoming strange. Right now, Kong Cheng falling into the hands of the Heavenly Sword sect was no different from a hot potato. If it wasn't handled well, there would be great trouble. But if it was handled properly, there would be great benefits. This master of the profound gate, could it be? Yang Tonghui's heart moved, his expression becoming more and more complicated. And Lin Feng no longer paid attention to him, turning his head to look at the distant horizon. He said faintly, "Old friends reunite, aren't you going to come out and meet?" In the distant horizon, the clouds instantly dispersed, revealing a person's figure. Chapter 220. In the distant sky, the clouds dispersed, revealing the figure of a young girl in green. She looked down at the clear stream, calm and at ease. She had a noble aura and exquisite features. It was the successor of the Taishu Temple, Yan Mingyue, whom he had met in Wuzhou City. Yan Mingyue seemed to be on the horizon, but with a step, she had already arrived. She brushed her hair behind her ear and looked at Lin Feng with a smile. "Sect leader Lin, how have you been?" Those who recognized Yan Mingyue were shocked. Yan Mingyue, isn't that the previous Taoism world walker? She's been missing for so many years. Why is she suddenly here today? Many people looked at the yin and yang life and death formation in the sky. Although their vision was blocked, everyone knew that the Taoism world walker after Yan Mingyue, Peng Jia, was currently in the formation. Lin Feng looked at Yan Mingyue, then at the great Zhou dynasty's palace manager, Mei Wulang. Among everyone present, only Mei Wulang's expression was calm. He was not surprised by Yan Mingyue's appearance at all. At this moment, Lin Feng understood that Yan Mingyue and Mei Wulang had come together. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind, but Lin Feng did not show it on his face. He smiled slightly. "Congratulations, fellow Yan. Not only have you obtained a new life, but your cultivation has also improved." Yan Mingyue smiled. "I also have to thank sect leader Lin for your help in the past. Mingyue cannot thank you enough." She flipped her palm and held up a fist-sized scarlet bead. The bead itself was a transparent crystal. The crystal's core even flickered with a bright flame. From afar, it looked like a human's eyeball. The moment this item appeared, it instantly overshadowed all the gifts that Mei Wulang had brought. Only the ghost god golden crown could barely compare. However, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He carefully sensed the energy waves within it and immediately discovered that this was a treasure that was even more valuable than the ghost god golden crown. He looked up at Yan Mingyue. "This is a Dharma treasure embryo." The moment he said this, the surroundings instantly fell silent. The word, magic treasure, carried too much weight. Although the hexagonal sword was trapped in the yin and yang life and death formation by Lin Feng and seemed to be in a very difficult situation, it was because the power of the heaven and earth change of Lin Feng's yin and yang life and death formation was too strong. If it were an ordinary magic formation, it would have been broken by the hexagonal sword. In the divine land, apart from the yin and yang life and death formation, there were only a handful of formations that could trap the hexagonal sword. Yan Mingyue nodded. This treasure's name is Vermilion Flame Demon Eye. It was formed from the eyeball of a primordial sky dragon that attained an indestructible demon soul. It contains the primordial sky dragon's fiery divine powers and dermic powers. It can be used as a Dharma treasure embryo to refine Dharma treasures. Lin Feng smiled and put away the red flame demonic eyes. Then, he reached out and waved his hand. The yin and yang life and death formation turned back into a light spot and returned to his hand. Pang Jia and the hexagonal sword broke free from the restriction of the magic formation. Seeing Yan Mingyue, Pang Jia's eyes flashed with a clear understanding. He came to Yan Mingyue's side with a calm expression and said lightly, "Congratulations, senior sister Yan." "Yan Mingyue, you." The hexagonal sword spirit wanted to say something, but it seemed to have noticed something and swallowed its words halfway. Yan Mingyue nodded. "Junior brother Pang, senior hexagon, long time no see." Pang Jia asked, "Senior sister Yan, you haven't returned to White Cloud Mountain?" Yan Mingyue smiled. "After congratulating sect leader Lin's opening ceremony, I plan to go back and take a look." Upon hearing that, Pang Jia said, "That's great. Sect leader and the elders miss you very much." From the side, Lin Feng watched the two of them exchange pleasantries. He couldn't help but feel that it was extremely interesting. They obviously wanted to strangle each other, but on the surface, they looked like they loved each other. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Gang had told him about the internal struggles of the Taishu Temple, Lin Feng would also have been fooled by their acting. At this moment, Pang Jia suddenly turned around and looked at Lin Feng. His gaze was a little strange. There was a little probing in it, as if he wanted to see through Lin Feng. Lin Feng calmly looked at him. After a moment, Pang Jia lowered his eyes and didn't say anything. Silently, he retreated behind Yan Mingyue. He actually gave the lead to Yan Mingyue. It seemed that his pride didn't allow him to lower his head to Lin Feng. However, the situation was stronger than he was, so he couldn't fight Lin Feng head-on. However, when Lin Feng saw this scene, his pupils contracted slightly. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said calmly, "Fellow Taoist Pang, you are welcome to visit my Yujing Mountain at any time." Pang Jia's body trembled slightly, but he still didn't say anything. Yan Mingyue's eyes revealed some surprise. After looking closely at Pang Jia, her lips curved in a smile of understanding. She didn't say anything else. At this moment, Lin Feng turned around and said to the others present, "Although there were some small disturbances, our sect's opening ceremony this time will still be held as scheduled. Thank you all for coming. Now, follow me up the mountain." As he spoke, a dense sea of purple qi surged into Yujing Mountain, revealing the true appearance of this white jade immortal mountain. Lin Feng flew up Yujing Mountain first. Xiao Yan and the others followed behind him. Yan Mingyue smiled slightly. She took the lead and flew to the top of Yujing Mountain. Mei Wulang and a group of attendants followed closely behind. But Pang Jia didn't move. Silently stood where he was, watching the others climb the mountain. The others exchanged a few glances before flying toward Jade Capital Mountain in groups of 2s and 3s. Some of them glanced at Pang Jia's lonely figure before quickly averting their gazes. They did not dare to show any pity or disdain. Even if Pang Jia was defeated by Lin Feng and his limelight was stolen by Yan Mingyue, he was not someone they could humiliate. Yang Tonghui put away Kong Chang's sword infant and said to Patriarch Qing Wei and Patriarch Fei Hua, "Let's go together." Then he flew up on his sword and led a group of Heavenly Sword sect disciples to Yujing Mountain. Patriarch Qing Wei and Patriarch Fei Hua looked at each other, sighed, and followed behind Yang Tonghui. They were conflicted, but Yang Tonghui was not relaxed either. He smiled bitterly in his heart. "Sect Leader Lin, oh Sect Leader Lin, you have really given the Heavenly Sword sect a difficult problem." As soon as they ascended Mount Yujing, everyone was shocked. They could feel the abundant spiritual energy on the fairy mountain, as well as the profound principles and artistic conception. They were all fascinated and felt that this trip to Mount Yujing was already worth it. Yan Mingyue's eyes shone brightly as she thought to herself, such a celestial mountain cave. In my life, only my sect's White Cloud Mountain, the great thunderclap monastery's pure land of ultimate bliss, and Shushan can compare. She smiled lightly. Long Yi, I'm afraid you don't know how precious Yujing Mountain is. Do you regret it now? Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran also landed on Yujing Mountain. They were both shocked. They looked at each other and could see the admiration in each other's eyes. As long as Pang Jia and Kong Chang are not dead, Taishu Temple and Shu Mountain Sword Sect will not fight to the death with Xianmen Tianzong, Wu Yunliang said softly. Meng Chaoran nodded in agreement with his senior brother's point of view. Pang Jia and Kong Chang, while their statuses are not low, are only second-generation disciples of their respective sections. The strength of Taishu Temple and Shu Mountain Sword Sect is beyond doubt. But the master of the Xianmen sect has great cultivation and has this mountain. If they want him to die, the price is very high. Taishu Temple and Shu Mountain Sword Sect have to be careful. Wu Yunliang nodded and sighed. If the opponent is weak, they can be wiped out easily. But when the opponent is strong, even if they can win, they have to think twice. As the saying goes, pull one hair and the whole body moves. If they are not careful, they will be taken advantage of. The Tempest Temple is a good example. If it was not for that incident, how could a holy land of Buddhism be destroyed so easily? Even if the Tempest Temple was destroyed, the one who benefited in the end was the great Zhou dynasty. Taishu Temple and the Nine Heavens Sword League gained very little. Instead, they lost many great cultivators. This kind of thing happened once is enough. Meng Chaoran replied, there is no death feud, and the benefits are not enough. Taishu Temple and Shu Mountain Sword Sect may be dissatisfied, but at most, it will be a few primordial spirit venerables who come looking for trouble. The sect as a whole will not easily make a move. Wu Yunliang laughed bitterly. But I am afraid that we will return empty-handed from this trip to the Sand Continent. Silently, Meng Chaoran said, we will do our best and leave the rest to fate. When everyone arrived at the top of the mountain, they saw 20 boys around 7 or 8 years old standing neatly in 2 rows, waiting respectfully. These boys were all wearing purple clothes that fit their bodies. Their faces were white and ruddy. They were all very cute. Their bodies were full of spiritual energy and their eyes were clear like newborn babies. They were full of innate energy and were not polluted by the filth of the mortal world. Seeing Lin Feng and the others, the group of boys first bowed to Lin Feng. Their clear and melodious voices rang out. Welcome back to the mountain, Patriarch. Then they bowed to Yan Mingyue and the others. Welcome, honored guests. Please forgive us if we did not serve you well. After living on Jade Capital Mountain for more than half a year, these boys, who were almost refined into elixirs in the past, had recovered to a good state of mind. They had also digested a part of the medicinal power and spiritual energy contained in the Void Tripod Void Pill in their bodies. Under the guidance of Zhu Yi and Kang Nanhua, they had practiced Tao techniques. At this moment, the spiritual energy circulating around their bodies was quite extraordinary. After bowing to the guests, the group of boys bowed to Xiao Yan and the others, Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao. Welcome back to the mountain, masters. Welcome back to the mountain, Mr. Kong and Mr. Miao. Seeing this, Yang Tonghui couldn't help but praise, sect leader Lin has taught you well. Even your boys are so outstanding. You flatter us. Lin Feng smiled. Ancestor Flying Fire's eyes swept across the top of Jade Capital Mountain. His eyes suddenly flashed, but he didn't say anything. At this moment, he was afraid that he wouldn't keep a low profile and anger Lin Feng. Naturally, he wouldn't put himself in danger. Lin Feng saw his actions, how could he not know what this old brat was thinking? It was nothing more than secretly mocking his sect for being bare. Next, it was time to witness a miracle. Lin Feng thought about this sentence twice and almost didn't say it out loud. He stopped his mischievous thoughts and smiled leisurely. My profound gate was created very hastily. I'm sorry to make you laugh at my crudeness. As he spoke, Lin Feng raised his hand and a ray of light flew into the sky. Chapter 221. My Taoist Xianmen was just created, so I'm sorry for my rudeness. As Lin Feng spoke, he activated the hidden system construction token. With a wave of his hand, a ray of light flew into the sky. The ray of light drew an arc in the sky and suddenly dispersed in the air, turning into a ball of light. Slowly, it landed under the mysterious sky treasure tree. The light dissipated, and everyone's eyes widened. The ball of light gradually revealed its true appearance. It was a majestic palace. The light and shadow lines gradually solidified, and finally became solid. The majestic palace also landed on the peak of Yujing Mountain. The main hall of the palace was 90 feet high, 18 rooms wide, and immeasurably deep. Its entire body flickered with a faint purplish gold color. The four corners of the eaves were slanted, and on them sat the four saints: the dragon, the phoenix, the tortoise, and the kirin. The palace was surrounded by solemn white jade railings. The overall material looked somewhat similar to Yujing Mountain, surrounding the entire main hall. Connected to the railings were 9 flights of stairs made of the same material, making the foundation of the main hall high, like a stairway to heaven. The entire main hall was high up, overlooking all living beings. At the top of the main hall, there was an illusory nebula floating. It was as bright as the Milky Way, profound, vast, and boundless. Solar celestial sun, lunar celestial Yin, gold celestial Taibai, wood celestial Jupiter, water celestial star, fire celestial star, and earth celestial star. As the stars moved, only the 7 eternal stars hung above the galaxy. They were like the rulers of the heavens, controlling all living beings. Below the foundation of the main hall, which was 9 flights of stairs, was quiet and dark. There seemed to be a wheel of light slowly rotating there. The wheel of light revealed an eternal existence. It was not affected by the will of the outside world, but determined the will of everything. It determined the fate of all living beings. 1 lifetime, 10 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes, 1,000 lifetimes. Like the torrent of history, the wheel of fate, it kept moving forward. No existence could stop it. Everything was predestined. Unstoppable. Unchangeable. In the netherworld, this eternally rotating wheel of light rotated, arranged, and recorded the lives of all living beings in the universe, the cycle of life and death. The 7 luminaries above his head remained eternally motionless, while the netherworld below his feet rotated endlessly. There was a plaque above the main entrance of the hall, and the 2 words heavens were written on it. It revealed a powerful concept of immortality and the vicissitudes of the world. Everyone blankly stared at this hall of all heavens in front of them. Not only Yang Tonghui and the others who came to observe the ceremony, even Lin Feng's Xiao Yan and the other disciples, as well as Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao, were a bit dazed as they stared at this extremely flashy main palace hall of their own sect. After a long time, Wu Yunliang came back to his senses. He looked at Meng Chao Ran and smiled bitterly. Why do I feel that our main hall of Beyond the Heavens Mountain is like a thatched hut compared to this palace of theirs? Meng Chaoran nodded without hesitation. Moreover, it's the kind of thatched hut that can be blown down by a gust of wind at any time. Yan Mingyue's eyes flickered as she thought to herself, creating something out of nothing? With such a divine ability, his true cultivation base is probably even higher than I expected. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the hall. His performance was undoubtedly to leave a deep impression in the hearts of Yan Mingyue, Mei Wulang, and Yang Tonghui, but at the same time, it was also to make those youths who were about to become his disciples more loyal. Lin Feng thanked True Monarch Hurricane, Yuan Feng, and the others from the bottom of his heart. They were all good people who were willing to sacrifice themselves for others. In the previous battle in the wasteland, Lin Feng's attack was a demonstration of his strength. But the previous battle with Xiao Yan and the others was simply a demonstration of the results of Xianmen Tianzong's education. Invincible in the same realm, golden elixir against Yuanying. He believed that after today, Xianmen Tianzong's name would spread throughout the great heaven primordial world. To those young geniuses that were about to enter the sect, it revealed to them a great path of the future that flickered with golden light and great prospects. But in order to protect them, Lin Feng had always used his spiritual power to protect them. So even though Xiao Yan and the others were fighting fiercely outside, for these youths, they were still shocked. But after all, there was still a layer between them, and they did not have a deep enough understanding. Right now, Lin Feng was going to use the sect construction token to create something out of nothing to carve a deep impression in their minds. He was going to let them know that there was definitely a future if they followed the founder. The effect was quite good. The group of youths, regardless of whether they had seen the world or not, were all tongue-tied at this moment, and their eyes shone brightly. While everyone was still in shock, Lin Feng's hands did not stop. He flicked his fingers, and another 3 streaks of light flew into the air, and then landed together in the empty space behind the Hall of All Heavens. On the left was a large number of houses that looked like houses. At first glance, they seemed simple and unadorned, but the details gave people a feeling of magnificence. The houses were overflowing with spiritual energy, and the density was even higher than that of Yujing Mountain. This was because there was a formation in the houses that continuously attracted the spiritual energy from Yujing Mountain to gather here. Ancestor Fei Hua looked at the disciples' houses in shock. Even though he did not really enter, with his Yuanying realm cultivation, he could feel the density of the spiritual energy just by standing outside. Living and cultivating here is really twice the result with half the effort. Ancestor Fei Hua gritted his teeth. It's not just twice the result with half the effort. Even a fucking pig would become a demon after a few years in here. Under Lin Feng's arrangements, the other 2 buildings were placed on the other side of the mysterious sky treasure tree, facing the disciples' houses. 2 ancient-looking palaces stood side by side. Waves of medicinal fragrance wafted out from one of the palaces. Just by smelling it, one would feel comfortable all over. Some cultivators even felt that the bottleneck that they had been stuck at for many years had slightly loosened. This was the alchemy room. With a thought from Lin Feng, the doors of the alchemy room opened. In the center of the floor of the palace, there was an 8 trigrams, and in the center of the 8 trigrams was an alchemy furnace. Outside the floor of the palace, there were several praying mats. Silently, there was a wind and fire cattail leaf fan placed on the praying mats. There were many large gourds hanging on the walls. If these gourds were used to store pills, not only would the medicinal power not be lost, but it would also become stronger and stronger under the nourishment of the gourds. Lin Feng sensed for a moment and found that even though the alchemy furnace in the alchemy room was also a high-grade one, it was still slightly inferior. Thus, with a wave of his hand, the alchemy furnace that he had prepared disappeared, and the outer core furnace landed in the center of the alchemy room. Yang Tonghui looked at it curiously. Sect leader Lin, this furnace is called the outer core furnace. Lin Feng smiled. I obtained it by chance, and I think it's not bad. All the knowledgeable people sucked in a breath of cold air. It's not just not bad, it's so powerful. Yang Tonghui clicked his tongue in wonder. I heard that this furnace can only be ignited by spiritual fires at least at the level of Scarlet Thunder Fire and Akalanatha's Fury Fire. It's wonderful. It can also trigger one's own heart fire to make the firepower stronger. The success rate of alchemy is at least 30% higher than that of ordinary alchemy furnaces. It's just that this furnace has been missing for nearly 1,000 years. I didn't expect it to be in the hands of sect leader Lin. Lin Feng smiled. It's also a lucky chance. He turned to look at Xiao Yan and threw the token of the alchemy room to him. After the construction of the building was completed, the token only had the function of management. Xiao Yan, you are in charge of the alchemy room. From now on, you are the master of the alchemy room. Xiao Yan took the token and turned to look at the alchemy room and the outer core furnace. He smiled and bowed, saying, Master, I will obey your order. Ancestor Qing Wei, who had been silent all the time, smiled bitterly in his heart. This boy has a talent in alchemy? Alas, it's really hard this time. The pavilion adjacent to the alchemy room was the Sutras Depository. Lin Feng didn't open this building to the public, but just gave a brief introduction. Everyone could understand, but they were all curiously looking at the Sutras Depository, which was nearly 30 feet high and divided into 3 floors. I wonder if there are any Taoist classics of Xianmen Tianzong in this Sutras Depository. Lin Feng held the token of the Sutras Depository in his hand, looked at Wang Lin, and said lightly, Xiao Lin, work hard on your cultivation. The day you form your gold core will be the day you take over this Sutras Depository. Wang Lin took a deep breath and bowed. I will not let you down, master. Lin Feng then turned his head and looked towards Zhu Yi. Xiao Yi, from today onwards, you will be the head instructor of our Xian Gate's new disciples. All of the disciples will first lay their foundations under you, and after finishing their apprenticeship with you, they will then listen to the teachings of others. Peaceful, dignified, fair, and strict. These are the requirements and expectations I have for you. Zhu Yi straightened his clothes and bowed to the ground. Slowly, he said, I will follow master's instructions. Seeing Lin Feng looking at him, the little guy stuck out his tongue and lowered his head to take a peek. When he saw Lin Feng smiling and shaking his head, the little guy immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Mei Wulang and Zhang Hai looked at each other when they saw this. They didn't say anything, but there was a hint of worry in their eyes. At this moment, Lin Feng brought everyone to the front of the All Heavens Hall. The heavy doors of the hall suddenly opened, and waves of pleasant celestial music came from the hall. The hall was surrounded by purple mist, and it was bright. Looking up at the top of the hall, it was actually a starry sky. There were countless stars, and they outlined countless wonderful trajectories. Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he already landed on the main seat of the hall. He sat cross-legged, and his attitude was relaxed. He didn't look serious, but in the eyes of everyone, he was full of majesty. Xiao Yan and the others already knew the process, so they separated and led Yan Mingyue and the others to stand on the 2 sides of the hall to watch the ceremony. Kang Nanhua and Miao Shihao stood below Lin Feng, and they smiled as they watched Zhu Yi lead the group of disciples into the hall, and came to the front of Lin Feng's throne. It was reasonable, but unexpected. The 2 people in front of the group of disciples were a gentle and polite young man in white, and a girl in red with red hair and red eyebrows. They were Yang Qing and Yu Hongyan. In the Battle of the Wasteland, the 2 of them were the first to be completely convinced by Lin Feng. The 2 of them stood at the front of the line of disciples, and they led everyone to kneel in front of Lin Feng's throne. Disciple pays respect to the founder. Lin Feng looked at the people below, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. A voice echoed in his mind, this is my sect. This voice belonged to Lin Feng himself. Then, the system notification sounded in his ears. Congratulations to the host for officially establishing the sect's foundation, and recruiting 30 disciples with a total potential value of more than 25, to lay the second stage of the sect's foundation. Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission too. 0. Special reward for the main mission released. Chapter 222. After the apprenticeship ceremony was completed, Lin Feng's Xianmen Tianzong's recruitment of disciples had come to a successful conclusion. Overall, under the wise leadership of Lin Feng, the 4 progeny disciples had each displayed their talents, and the invading enemies were defeated one after another, suffering cruel blows. A total of 34 good seedlings with a combined potential value of 25 and above were accepted by Lin Feng, successfully achieving the set goal. He was certain that this was a successful and memorable opening ceremony that was worth learning from by the majority of his colleagues. In fact, the total number of disciples who entered this time was more than 50. Other than those with a combined potential value of 25 and above, there were also some people with a combined potential value of more than 20 and close to 25. Among this group of people, those with better character and temperament were also accepted by Lin Feng. For the first time, Lin Feng's principle was quality over quantity. His own sect was indeed in the initial stage. If he accepted too many disciples at once, firstly, there wouldn't be enough resources to distribute, and secondly, there wouldn't be enough energy to teach. Therefore, most of the disciples with lower talent had already been eliminated when they were in Sand Continent City. Although it was a little cruel, Lin Feng could only harden his heart and make a decision. And among the disciples that were accepted, what made Lin Feng the happiest was that there were two monstrous figures with a combined potential value of more than 30. That was Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing. Both of them were directly accepted as progeny disciples by Lin Feng, and they also directly gave Lin Feng 2 lucky draw chances. Although it was given by the system, it could also be regarded as a gift for the two of them to acknowledge him as their master. It could not be said to be insignificant. In Lin Feng's disciple system, there was also a list of the two people's notes, name, Yu Hongyan age, 17 years and 5 months current cultivation, middle stage foundation establishment, spirit platform realm potential attribute, root bone -8, comprehension -8, will -7, fortune -7. Recommended education plan, recommended to practice fire-type Dao techniques. In terms of supernatural powers, recommended to focus on physical martial arts as the main development direction. Name, Yang Qing age, 17 years and 1 month current cultivation, middle stage foundation establishment, spirit platform realm potential attribute, root bone 9, comprehension 9, will 5, fortune 8. Recommended education plan, it is recommended to cultivate water-type Dao techniques. As for divine abilities, it is recommended to focus on spells as the main direction of development. In addition, he is quite talented in the cultivation of spiritual herbs and herbs, so I suggest that he train him in this area. Note, his willpower is relatively low, and he is prone to large fluctuations in the process of cultivation. You need to pay close attention. Lin Feng flipped through the two's information, all kinds of thoughts running through his mind. Kang Nanhua and the others were responsible for seeing off the guests who came to attend the ceremony, so there was no need to trouble Lin Feng. The opening ceremony ended successfully. Everyone in Xianmen Tianzong was in a good mood. However, when the guests left, they all had conflicted expressions on their faces. The cultivators in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain were all sad about the sudden rise of such a giant force in the area where their sect was located. Ancestor Feihua came in high spirits, but returned in disappointment. He was secretly glad that Lin Feng did not make trouble for him. Ancestor Qing Wei's mouth was full of bitterness, as if he had eaten gold thread. If he had to say it himself, it would be like his stomach was full of gold thread, and his throat was full of it. Yang Tonghui, who was guarding Kong Chang's nascent soul, was also conflicted. The next response of the Heavenly Sword sect was like stepping on a tightrope. But if it was handled well, the Heavenly Sword sect would gain great benefits from it. Yang Tonghui felt hot just thinking about it, so he continued to feel pain and happiness. As for Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran, although they had the opportunity to talk with Lin Feng in private, the result was really not optimistic for them. Lin Feng did not mind their behavior. Heavenly Mountain was different from the Heavenly Sword sect. They did not have any friendship before, and Lin Feng did not show enough strength. It was normal that the other side did not bet on him. Lin Feng's thinking had always been very simple. If you did not have enough strength, why should the neutral side favor you? They don't owe you anything. But on the other hand, I don't owe anyone anything. It's impossible to get something from me empty-handed. After sending off Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran, there was only one group of guests left. Looking at Yan Mingyue standing in front of him, Lin Feng said lightly, "A red flame demon eye is far from enough. If others heard Lin Feng say this, they would probably be shocked. A magic treasure embryo was not enough for the opening gift. But Yan Mingyue's expression was calm. She was well aware of the meaning behind Lin Feng's words, very straightforwardly nodding her head. I understand. The girl in cyan smiled slightly. I promise that there will be a reward. Lin Feng stared at her for a moment, lightly saying, I hope that I can bear the consequences of fellow Taoist Yan. Yan Mingyue smiled and said, of course, otherwise, I can't bear the revenge of sect leader Lin. Oh, there is one more thing. Lin Feng suddenly remembered something. He flicked his finger and a black smoke landed on the ground. It turned into a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. This person's skin was a strange purple-black color. Above his lips were two thick and long beards. On his head were two forked horns. It was the black dragon Jiayu in human form. His body exuded a strong majestic aura as if he was the ruler of the world. But in front of Lin Feng, this aura disappeared. He respectfully bowed to Lin Feng and said, Sect leader. Jiayu stood up and turned to look at Yan Mingyue. He nodded and said, Goddess Yan, long time no see. Yan Mingyue saw Jiayu and smiled, so you are now following sect leader Lin. Lin Feng waved his hand. I called him out to ask if he is interested in returning to Taishu Temple with you. Jiayu's expression changed. Yan Mingyue smiled and said leisurely, I think a certain dragon will not be willing to go back. Oh. Lin Feng was a little surprised. He turned to look at Jiayu. Although Jiayu was not mistreated here, he was not treated well either. He did not get anything good. Half of the gunmetal tiger king's corpse was refined by Lin Feng into the golden tiger clone, and the other half was given to Tunten. As for the essence of the demon infant, 1/3 of it was refined into the golden tiger disc for Tiny. 1/3 was used to refine the golden tiger clone. Although the remaining 1/3 was still in Lin Feng's hands, Jiayu did not get it. Most importantly, it was said that dragons were lustful. He did not have any female spirit beasts here for him to seduce. Forget about Tunten. That fierce loli would not be interested in Jiayu. It was good enough that he did not eat Jiayu. Jiayu was willing to accept such treatment. Instead, he did not want to return to Taishu Temple. Lin Feng looked at Jiayu and slowly said, there are many reasons why I kept you here. If you want to return to Taishu Temple, I will not make things difficult for you. At this point, Jiayu's head shook like a drum. No, sect master, I don't want to go back. I'm fine here. Please don't chase me away. Lin Feng was shocked. Looking at Jiayu's appearance, if it wasn't for Yan Mingyue at the side, he would have pounced over and hugged Lin Feng's legs while crying. Yan Mingyue could not help but laugh at the side, and explained, Sect Master Lin, it's like this, where is Jiayu? He married a female primordial sky dragon in our Great Void Temple's dragon pond. Yes, that female dragon is at the Demon King level. As she said this, Lin Feng suddenly understood. After all this time, it's because the husband's discipline is weak and he's afraid of his wife? After understanding, Lin Feng was a little speechless. Comparing it to Tunten, he felt like 100,000 horses were galloping in his heart. Damn it, are all demons like this? What a disgrace to men, no, to male demons. Since Jiayu was unwilling to leave, Lin Feng did not force him and sent Yan Mingyue down the mountain. After the last guest left Yujing Mountain, the mysterious heaven treasure tree at the top of the mountain suddenly released a dazzling light, its branches and leaves swaying together. The light broke through the void and the entire Yujing Mountain flew into the sky. The enormous white jade immortal mountain gradually disappeared into the void. The majestic immortal mountain came and went in a leisurely manner, vanishing from the wastelands outside Sand Continent City as if it had never existed. This almost miraculous scene would become the most famous legend of Sand Continent City in the future. Yan Mingyue stood on the clouds, watching Yujing Mountain disappear into the void. After a long time, she sighed softly and did not say anything. Behind her, Pang Jie slowly said, "The entire mountain and cave abode is hidden in the chaotic void, and its whereabouts are unknown. In such a situation, it is impossible to find trouble with him even if we want to. Unless the supreme experts of Taishu Temple come out in full force and join forces to search the void, there is no way to stop him." Silently, Yan Mingyue said, "You know that is impossible." "Yes, I know. He is not a demon." Pang Jie's tone was calm. "Moreover, there are others watching from the sidelines. If Taishu Temple comes out in full force, we will be exposed. I believe many people will be happy to see that happen." His gaze moved between Yan Mingyue and Mei Wulang. Mei Wulang smiled humbly and did not reply. Yan Mingyue did not respond to Pang Jie's hidden rebuke. She only smiled faintly. "If not for sect leader Lin's reminder, junior brother Pang, I would have almost been fooled. When did you refine such a late Yuanying clone? If I am not wrong, you have not ascended to the Yuanying stage yet." Pang Jie said calmly, "Everyone has their own fortuitous encounters. Isn't senior apprentice sister Yen the same as well? I really have to thank the master of the Mystic Gate for giving me a head-on blow." He gazed in the direction that Yujing Mountain had disappeared. "I am going back to White Cloud Mountain. If I can gain anything this time, half of the credit will go to the master of the Mystic Gate, and the other half to you, senior sister. Thank you for working together to teach me a lesson." With that, Pang Jie's body broke through the void and disappeared. Mei Wulang finally spoke. "Fairy Yen, this junior brother of yours is not simple. If this wasn't just his clone, I would really want to make him stay here forever." Yan Mingyue smiled slightly and did not say anything. She gazed into the distant sky. "If you say he is not simple, then the master of the Mystic Gate is even more so. I wonder what he is doing right now." Lin Feng, whom Yan Mingyue had been talking about, was currently researching the new main mission that the system had given him. Lin Feng frowned slightly. "It seems quite simple, but given the system's usual tendency to screw me over, why do I have an ominous feeling?" You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.